Mentors for Military coming at you. Robert, sitting here with my sidekick, Paul Martinez.
Hey, everybody.
We're at 15 Parish Street, and appreciate you guys tuning in, and appreciate these guys for hooking us up. I want to talk a little bit about, again, how you can help support the podcast. If you like the content, like the guest, and enjoy what you're listening to, make sure you hit the subscribe to us, but also go out there to patreon.com. You can search for Mentors, the number 4 MIL, whether it's on Patreon, social media, or whatever, and you can follow us. But certainly on Patreon, you can support us, and we appreciate everybody who's already out there doing so on our Patreon site. So our guest today is Randy Surles. And Randy, you came a long damn way in here. So maybe we start there with where is it that you came from?
Yeah, I flew in from Romania.
Now, not very many people have come in from Romania to be on the Metro.
I think it's the first one.
It's got to be.
Unless somebody didn't tell us.
I mean, this is like the straight up hookup, right? It was very cool that you traveled that far.
I mean, I didn't go all the way to see you. I came to see my family.
Oh,
stop by.
Jeez.
They're probably listening. You have to say that, right?
We'll edit that out.
What are you doing in Romania?
Yeah.
Living.
Okay.
It's a pretty good cost of living down there, and I'm working remotely, so it's easy, and my girlfriend lives there, so all the above.
Nice. Good reason.
Yeah.
What made you pick Romania? Just have you been there before? Or
she's Hungarian. She lives in Romania.
Okay.
It seemed like, and also, you know, for any retired vets that are making a retirement income of some sort, I mean, I guess that would include anyone who didn't retire who gets a pretty good VA check. If you want to live in Europe, it's pretty simple. I applied in Romania, no problem. Hey, this is how much I make per month. 30 days later, they give me a green card for a year after renew it every year. I applied for 1 year in France. Took me 10 days. I called the embassy. They bring this to the embassy. Hey, give me your passport. We'll call you in a week. Come pick up your passport. You have a year visa. Wow. So if you're interested in, I mean, you have to do the residency. You have to do that every year for 6 or 7 years. And you have to learn the language in France. But pretty much any country down in Europe is, as long as you're making the above the minimum wage, which is about 1,200 euros, so maybe $1,500 or something.
Wow.
You're good.
That's awesome.
A lot of them have digital nomad visas now, too. So if you're making your money online somehow, like you got a podcast or some kind of residual income, if you can prove it, you know, through your tax records over a period of time, then you don't even have to pay their taxes or do anything there. You just pay taxes in the States. You're not taking a job from within the country for one of the citizens. You're not eating up their insurance because you're on TRICARE, for instance, so you have your own insurance. And then you live your life down there, and you have to renew it every year or 6 months, depending on the country. And cool.
Wow. Well, I had no idea.
Now, as far as the TRICARE, how are you working that in with the insurance and stuff? I mean, you obviously had to notify them that you're over there. Do you have to have something special for you to be?
So they have TRICARE overseas, which is you pay up front and get reimbursed. And I'll give you an example. I mean, it's socialized. It's cheaper for people who aren't on the social system. But if you sign up for the visa, you get covered by the social system. In some countries, you may not want to wait the wait times. But so I went to a private place because I didn't want to do the wait times, and I paid out of pocket for 2 sonograms and a ultrasound for my hernia and 3 specialists. I think it cost me $300 tops.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny that you say that because people talk about socialized healthcare, and we don't want to get too darn far down this rabbit hole, but it's, you know, traveling over to Europe and other countries who have it, the constant discussion is around the wait times to go see just a basic physician for any problem or anything that you have. So what you end up doing is, of course, paying out of pocket so that you don't have to go through the regular health system, but yet you're paying for that out of your taxes. So for those who, kind of think that that's the better way to go, you got to realize what that means, but also in America, if you don't have insurance, of course, we're now required to have some level of insurance. If you go to a physician, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. They'd rather, you pay out of pocket than to go through the insurance company.
There's some that cater to that here in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll just say that even the private people I went to couldn't find the hernia, right? I was a medic. We'll get into that probably. I was an SF medic. And I knew when I did the kettlebell swing that I was like, oh, that sucks. And that's probably a hernia. And then I waited it out to make sure it wasn't a groin pull, but I couldn't feel it completely. And then I went to these specialists with their sonograms and ultrasounds, and they're like, nah, I think you just pulled it. I was like, it's been 3 months. I did not pull it. This is a hernia. What's the next step? There's a next step. What's the next step to figure this out? And they're like, you're good. The next step is I went home to the VA, and the VA, because I live, I don't know what the distance from I don't know what the limit is, but because I lived outside their perimeter, they put me up with a contracted doctor in my area. I walked in as soon as I hit the day after I hit the ground. I walked in. He felt through my jeans, like, "Yep, that's a hernia." And he felt the other side, like, "I think you might have one here." So when I'm in there fixing this one, I might go bilat. When can you see me? 2 days. I mean, this is my positive VA story. I haven't had a problem with the VA yet, and I've had 2 surgeries from them, and they're all pretty quick and pretty professional done. And I was out and recovered. So, if you're going to have a hernia, don't go to Romania, I guess. Every country's different about wait times. You can get in their little chat rooms with all the Americans that live there, and they say great things, and some people say bad things about depending on the country. But ultimately, you can always go home and get it done here.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you think the quality of care is the expertise was a little bit lower?
I think the problem is I don't have a primary caregiver, right? Okay. So I have to go to a specialist who doesn't know me. And he's like, I don't feel anything, and I didn't see anything. Which, to tell you the truth, when I went to my VA doc and I said I have a hernia, he's like, I don't feel it, but the definitive test is a CT scan, so let's get you set up for that. And that came up positive, right? They didn't even volunteer the CT scan. So the problem with social medicine, in my opinion, is there's a checklist, and this is what you get. And if you don't meet that thing, don't listen to the patient necessarily. Right. I have a hernia. Well, what do you know? You're not a doctor. It's like, am I?
Right.
and so they kept sending me home, and I kept insisting that it was, and then I believed myself, and then I went home and got it checked out. And even the normal doctor couldn't feel it because he's not a specialist, right? So they had to send me to a CT scan, which was the definitive next step to figure it out, because I told him I had these other things, and he couldn't. He said, I'm not going to do that again. Let's do something different. Right. So anyway.
That's interesting.
Off on a tangent.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because I have no positive stories for the VA at this point in time. So,
I had two surgeries. They both went off really well. In fact, I had one after another. I said I had one. I recovered after a month. Had the next one, recovered. Then I went back to Romania.
Really? What state was that in?
Texas.
That makes sense.
Which I don't know if Dallas. I'm going to say Dallas Vet Center. Go Dallas. Go Cowboys.
Yeah, they're not all created equal.
I hear that too, and also the fact that I didn't have to actually go to the VA. I don't know what the wait line is for there, right? Since they contracted it out, so both of them were civilian doctors.
Okay, and that's state by state. You know, everywhere I've lived, it's been different, so it just kind of depends.
So, is that home, Texas?
Yeah. So I was born in Houston.
Oh, lie. Where about? Was it in Houston, like downtown?
Memorial Hospital.
Okay. No, I mean like
I don't know. I have no idea. I was born there. I never lived there.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
I don't know much about Texas, except I'm from Texas. My parents live in Texas. I visit Texas frequently. I went to college in San Antonio for a year before I joined the Army, which is probably the other story we're going to get into. And so I call myself a Texan, which is good because there's a lot of benefits in Texas.
But where did you grow up then?
All right. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So my dad worked for Ross Perot. His computer company, Electronic Data Systems.
It was still Texas.
It was still, I think he owned Texas at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I was born in Houston. My dad was born in Texas. My mother was born in Iowa. But they met at North Texas State. Mm-hmm. And so I was born in Houston. I think we moved to Galveston a little bit. But then we went up to the East Coast, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. We moved back to Texas for a couple months. And then I moved to Iran. And when I was in third grade, we moved to Iran, and I went to school there for 3 years at an American school.
Wow! And
then we got evacuated during the Revolution. I don't know if you know the Ross Perot story. On the Wings of Eagles. So that was on the Wings of Eagles was my dad's company, and the two managers that were down there got arrested because
maybe share the story for those listeners who are not old enough to know what we're talking about.
Revolution in 1979, 78, 79. Yeah. 79 is when the revolution, we got evacuated in December 78. So the Khomeini came in, the Shah left. Shah was supported by the U.S. And then there was a bunch of, I think, 52 hostages from the embassy were taken. Argo is the the movie about the Americans that the Canadian ambassador hid, and then they got him out through a secret means. But there's 52 prisoners in the embassy that were held for 444 days, and then they had a failed attempt from a newly minted Delta Force Ranger combination.
It was Desert One, right?
Desert One, Desert Eagle,
which by the way failed because there wasn't a 160th at that time frame, which created the 160th and the supporting element,
and all the communication problems they had, and
they couldn't tell anybody what they were going to do for the mission, so everybody just kind of
and there was weather problems too, I think. And then I read a book about it. I read a book of someone who was there, and he said that they were sleeping, waiting for something to happen in the desert, and the alarms went off. And so he looked up and jumped out into the sand because he thought they were in the air. I forgot. But anyway, so these two guys were captured, or taken into prison because the company was working on a social security system for the Iranians at the time. And they said, hey, you didn't fulfill your contract, blah, blah, blah. And they just arrested them. And everyone else. Meanwhile, EDS was made up of majority ex-military, ex-Vietnam vets. And they saw the writing on the wall, and they're like, hey, we should have primary, alternates, secondary, emergency, pace plan to get to the airport. Everyone has to have one bag packed at all times for each one person in their family. We'll have call rosters, we'll have call pyramids. You call me, everyone gets called. Hey, we're going to do a call at 4:00 in the morning. As everyone was, accounted for, all that stuff they were doing. And when they arrested him, they called Ross and said, hey, they arrested him. It was like, all right, initiate Delta 132, whatever it was called. Yeah. And everyone went to the airport. And, of course, everyone was trying to get out of the airport. And so there was no plane. The way I understand the story, and I read the book, is Ross Perot rented or bought a plane, flew it in. Not a lot, but there's a couple people that adopted Iranian babies from orphanages there, and they didn't have any paperwork on them. So they walk up to passport control, and one guy who spoke kind of half-assed Farsi would go, blah, 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 and people would smuggle babies under their coats past them and get them on the plane, and then they flew them to Turkey, and then they flew them back to Texas.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That's intense.
So going back to your father and this story...
My father wasn't not a prisoner. We were evacuated. So I'm explaining the vaccination.
The evacuation.
The evacuation. No vaccination. I'm explaining the evacuation. So the two guys were held prisoner. Ross Perot, I don't know. It's not very clear if he actually hired Bull Simons or he just said, hey, buddy, I need some help. But Bull Simons was involved, who was, Sante Raider. And he said, I want to get my guys out. The government's not helping me. I'm going to get my guys out. So then he asked all the people who he had evacuated from Iran, these are your buddies, Iran, whoever wants to be involved, stay, and whoever doesn't, no hard feelings, leave. And so I think 4 guys stayed, and there are a variety of MOSs, and they made a movie, they made a TV movie of this. It had a big star in it. He played Bull Simons. And they have them, they did rehearsals. They built a simulated jail because they had Iranians that used to work for the company that had pictures and would tell them what it looks like and things like that. And they built simulations. These are old 30-something guys who haven't done anything but use computers. And then Bull Simons, who was 60 or something, whatever he was at the time. And so they're all trying to get over these, put the ladder up, go faster, go. And there's in the TV show, he's got a guy on a stopwatch. He's like, that's not fast enough. Do it again. Yeah. And so they did that. And then they flew in with fake paperwork that you probably can't even do nowadays because of biometrics. But they had fake passports as Canadian journalists, shoved like $1 million in their cowboy boots, and got there, rented like the 5th floor of the Holiday Inn or the Hilton or whatever, and that was their operation center. And Ross Perot flew in undisguised with his ears. I don't know how he disguised it, but he flew in and visited them in the prison and said, hey, we're getting you out. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
And then he flew home. Those guys were about to implement the plan, and then they switched them to a different prison, a more secure prison for political prisoners. So they said, scratch that plan and let's start planning again. We're not giving up. And so they started planning it again. And then Khomeini, all the guards worked for the Shah. The Shah flew out. Everyone's like, these are all the prisoners that are on Khomeini's side, so they all kind of like, they're going to be mad at us. So they just left, the doors open and booked.
Yeah.
And the prisoners woke up the next day, the doors were open, and they all walked out. And the 2 American prisoners, taxi, Hilton, please.
Yeah.
And went there, hey, here we are. And they're like, oh, shit.
That's hilarious.
And then they had an exfil plan overland, so they got some Jeeps. They already had them all loaded up, and they exfilled through Turkey.
Wow. That's like the best way to do an op. Target just shows up. Knocks on the door like, hey, guys.
Yeah, so that's my version. There's a book. It probably tells you a better version. That's the way I remember. I haven't read the book in like 20 years. So,
how was your evacuation? That was pretty smooth, though?
Yeah, so it was just get on a plane.
Okay.
Get on the plane.
Yeah. Where did you guys go?
Turkey. Went to Turkey.
After?
Houston. And then my dad got a job in UK. So I went to London for 6 months. And then he got a job in, the UK job was tentative and they were filling it out and it fell through. So then they got a job in the Netherlands. So I lived there for 5 years.
All under Perot still?
Yep. I went to high school, or I went to middle school in Amsterdam at an American school. And then I went to high school for 2 of those years in Den Haag. And then I went back to the UK and I graduated high school in the UK. And then I went to college, kind of.
What was it like living abroad like that and going to school, high school? And
so this plays a lot into my military career because I didn't really do any physical sports because there's not football.
Yeah.
I did rugby a little bit.
Well, there is football, but it's...
Well, I played soccer.
Yeah.
I played a little bit of rugby, not much. And they had a baseball club that when I was little, I participated in, just get all the Americans and everyone divides up into teams and they play each other. But ultimately in high school, I did running. I did, and I wasn't good. Don't get me wrong, but I did it, and I learned how to run. So I ran track, long distance, like 1 and 2K, and there was 4K. It was 4K for the varsity for the cross country, and that's what I did. And I swam. So I ran and swam, and that paid off when I joined the Army because pretty much when any assessment you do, you have to have cardio and you have to run and swim. You don't have to lift a lot of weights. You have to hold something on your back, but as a result, I didn't get a lot of injuries, right? I wasn't playing football and throwing my arm out in baseball or anything like that. I really think that's a big part of why I lasted as long as I did in special
swimming
ops.
is like really good for like elongating your muscles and
So I was a runner. I called myself a runner or swimmer, but I wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Right.
I just did it all the time, but I wasn't like winning in races or anything. But when you translate that into basic training, I was like
you're a stud.
Number 1 or 2, right? And then when you translate that into all the people in the gym trying to run at the selection or RIP, then I'm also in the top 5 or something like that, right?
Yeah, well, just because it's not the first time you've done it,
right? I
think is a lot of advantage.
So I really think that. Whenever someone's like, "Hey, I want to go SF or I want to be a Ranger," I was like, "Run." Yeah. Just if you can run, everything else is just sucking it up because they're going to make you do push-ups till you can't do anymore, and that's everyone's going to fail. You can't do any more push-ups, but if you can run, you'll have a better recovery time because you'll don't run too fast because you get there too soon, then you get to do more push-ups.
Right. Yeah, never run too fast. Everybody's like, I want to crush the 5 mile. I did my 5 mile in Ranger School. You got to do 40 minutes. I did it at 39:50. Yeah. And everybody's like, you're not going to make it. And I'm watching the clock count down. I'm like, I got a couple more days of bullshit I got to do.
Yeah. So, I really think the running and swimming really helped me get through the first 10 years of my career. Yeah.
Did you go to university over in UK?
I didn't. I got a scholarship. I got an academic scholarship to go to Trinity University in San Antonio.
Oh, wow. From there.
Yeah. And and the only reason I took it is because they gave me a scholarship.
Yeah.
And my dad paid for the difference. He was super generous and gave me a living expense. So, I was definitely privileged. And I threw it all away. I had been away from the United States so long. I'll blame it on a couple things. I'd never seen like real TVs, like cable and stuff. And I was like, Hogan's Heroes, what's this? And I was like, this is all. And I was like, this is cool, and I didn't learn how to drive. So I got over there and finally I got freedom with the car. And I was like, I should learn what's outside of San Antonio and come back at 4:00 in the morning and not study. Mm-hmm. So just a variety of things, nothing crazy like blackout drinking and stuff like that really got me. That really, it was just me not appreciating college. And to tell you the truth, I never talked to a recruiter in high school. They didn't come to my private school in London, right?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And so I never even, the only thing I knew was, Commando, Rambo, and also I felt like I'd had a pretty easy life. I had upper middle income, something like that, and I hadn't really been tested. And I wanted to test myself, and watching all these crappy movies made me think that was a good way to test myself. And so I think I can't remember correctly. I think I told my dad I was thinking about that. I don't know much about it, but I'm thinking about it. And he no, if you go to the Army, you want to be an officer and he was big blue collar, white collar back then. And I think that was a big thing in the 80s, right?
Right.
It's like, if you don't get white collar, you won't be able to live into the lifestyle you're accustomed to. Right. And you'll have to struggle a lot to get to where I am. And I don't want you to go through that. Mm-hmm. And so that was his convincing argument. And then, he got the college brochures and he was excited about them. And I was like, I don't really care, and he's like, well, if you get a scholarship, I'll give you half of that in cash. I was like, well, let's see. So I started doing the scholarships so I got Trinity gave me the biggest scholarship. So I went to Trinity, which wasn't a big sports university. It's like they only gave tennis scholarships.
Okay.
And so I went there. I made some friends in that 1 year I went there, and one guy was even ROTC and ended up being a doctor in the Army later on. And one of my friends, his brother was in the Marines. He was Marine Recon, or whatever they say. I don't even know what they say. Sorry, Marines out there. I can't say it. But I think we say hua.
Some of us do. Yeah.
It's hoorah for them.
Hoorah, maybe,
Yeah.
But he went to the Q course, the Charlie course from Marine Recon, because they did some exchange thing, right?
Yeah.
And so he was telling me about that, and but I flunked out of college. I went to work for my uncle as a caterer on a riverboat or something up in Ohio. And so I made some money. Then I traveled around and visited all my college friends that were all over the United States that summer. And I went back, and my uncle was a Marine in the Vietnam. So he has all his boot camp annuals and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know, looks kind of cool. So I didn't tell anyone I went to the Marine recruiter. I took the ASVAB. Yeah. Scored very good. I think I scored like a 126.
Okay.
And they said, well, you can do anything you want in the Marines. I was like, well, what is there? And then I was thinking about it. I hadn't committed. I went back, talked to my friends in college, and they said, you know what? The guy who became a doctor, he really knew it. He was an ROTC. You should probably join the Army, because he's probably a Ranger, because that's like a Marine. Every Marine's just like a Ranger.
Sure.
And
Just the same.
Yeah. And so join the Rangers, because he was in like the Rangers and ROTC.
Okay.
So he knew something about the Rangers, more than I did, for sure.
And they like to do the Ranger Challenge. It's
he's in the Ranger Challenge. Yeah. Yep. And so I was like, you should go volunteer to be a Ranger. And then if you don't like being a Ranger, the Army has a lot of other jobs, and you can change to something else if you want to stay in the Army. But in the Marines, you're a Marine, and there are some other jobs, but not a lot of them. Most of them are just Marines. So that makes sense. So I went in, and my parents weren't very happy, and I went to the recruiter, and they tried to sell me on, you can lay wire below the ground. They have someone digging something. Yeah. You can lay wire above the ground. You can lay wire.
Those damn recruiters.
And it's like a VCR tape, they show me all these things, and I was like, can I see the Ranger tape? And it was it was the stripes, like and people doing the obstacle courses, like this is what I want to do. And so he's like, sure, sign right here. And it was before the bonuses. It was just like, I signed my body to be used for the next 4 years. Yeah. And so I got the Ranger contract, and I went to basic. I did very well. I was honor grad. Went to
your infantry.
Yep.
Okay.
Bravo. And I went to Airborne. I went to Old RIP.
Yeah.
Old RIP was bad. We learned, I was just talking to. I heard one of your podcasts the other day where the guy was talking about where there was no learning there at all. It was just like, we're going to do shut your dice. We're going to do. Yeah, we're going to do push-ups all day in this gravel until someone quits, and then someone, probably the instructor's like crunch, 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 crunch. Well, that's one. We need two more. I don't know. Who knows what was going on behind our backs? And we did the obstacle course like 4 times a day, and
brutal.
Yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, got through that. 3rd Ranger Battalion.
What year was that?
88 is when 88? I got there. Yeah.
Okay, so 3rd Bat's had only been around for 4 years at that point.
Right, exactly. So it was mostly 1st and 2nd for the NCOs, or mostly 1st and 2nd, but NCOs.
Yikes!
Black boots, black beret.
Oh yeah, shine. Well, OG 107s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Starched.
Yeah, spits and starches.
And they starched them for us. We just had to turn them in on the because they're like the cooks. We were required to have starched, and so they got the military to say, okay, we can turn them in, and they starched them for us.
Wow. Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
But you had to shine your own boots.
Yeah. I sucked at that so bad. I'm so glad when we got rid of those.
I was too. That was actually like one of the tipping points for me. And I'm like, all my pros and cons, I'm talking about to my buddies, and I was like pretty much sold. I was like, man, but I don't want to shine boots all the time. It was a mental block. And they're like, oh no, we've got rough out and suede now.
Yeah.
Desert Storm. What? And like, yeah, you don't shine your boots. You can't. It's not even possible. I'm like, well, shit.
Desert Storm jeans.
They didn't tell you I had to brush them every now and then.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember hearing, I think it was Brandy, when she went to basic training, she thought she made a mistake. Well, when I got to the center before they put you in basic, I went to Benning, right?
Harmony Church. I
did go to Harmony Church, but you had to go to like
the reception.
30th AG.
Yeah, we sit there and wait for the next one to start or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got my boots and I put them on. I never wore boots in my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel claustrophobic. I don't know if I could do this.
Wow.
I was like, the boot. I was like, what am I supposed to? I have to run and I have to walk in these boots. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get so many blisters. It's going to suck so bad. And I got over that, I guess.
That is funny.
So you made it through RIP and you got 3rd Bat. And what company?
Alpha.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Which platoon?
3rd.
3rd? Okay.
Yeah.
I worked with those guys.
I don't know if any old timer. I think he retired as a CSM in 2012. But Pete Rothke was my squad leader.
You know JB Spiso?
I don't.
Oh, okay. I thought you might know him.
No, Pete Rothke. I got a guy named I don't know.
Spiso was there when I was there. I left Benning in '86, and I only know Spiso not from battalion, but from going to college at night.
Yeah.
Don Fox and I would go to school at night, and I remember, JB, you're going to probably be listening to this thing, and I don't know if I told you this story, but we would always talk about how wound up he was. He was in class and everything. We were like all mellow and stuff, and he's all intense. And it was just hilarious because I got that phone call from Don when he got on the show, and he's like, "You don't remember Spiso Man being on the show? I mean, in college and everything." I'm like, "No, man, it was just too damn long ago, Not to mention it was just go to Troy there at Fort Benning, at night and everything." And he's like, "Oh man, he was the dude we used to talk about all the time about how wound up he was, and we were just trying to be chill and the whole thing." But at any rate, I'm going down a rabbit hole here and taking us down a different path. Give me flashbacks to that time period. And it's funny because I actually joined the Army during the hostage crisis. And so I was in basic and OSIT when that was going on. And so your story is like right after my timeline. I'm ahead of you a little bit. But it's just kind of interesting to this point. So you're there at Fort Benning and loving life, obviously.
I didn't have much. I mean, RIP was brutal, and then battalions like eternal RIP.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for the privates. I mean, there's no break, and then it depends on your squad leader and your platoon sergeant. They can make it harder or easier, but it's pretty much a constant RIP. It just matters, what day of RIP it is, because there's no slack, and you're always running 100%. And you're running wherever you're going, and if you don't got nothing to do, well, the specialists will find something for you to do. Yeah,
and you mean that literally? You're literally everywhere you go when you're private. You're running, period.
And if you're relaxing, and someone sees you, you're doing push-ups.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I remember just coming over there, and like you're talking about, I'd see people running, but if a sergeant ever called somebody over, it was automatically incline.
Yeah.
Before a conversation happened, or it was a one-way communication at that point.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Usually.
Yeah.
But the team leaders and squad leaders are just, I mean, smokers, drinkers, and performers.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I still don't know how they did it because I never got to that level where I could drink all night, fall asleep drunk, wake up on time, smoke a cigarette before PT, run the crap out of everybody and smoke them, and then be smoking afterwards. Like, why are you guys tired?
Yeah. Well, most of your senior NCOs at that time frame, probably 6 and 7, were they jumped in Panama.
Oh, I jumped in Panama.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I mean, I got there in '88.
That's right, 88.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so I got there and immediately we started training up for JOTC.
I'm sorry, I said 88. I didn't get there until Benning. I'm totally off here. I didn't get to Benning until 90. So, yeah, you got there right before I did. So you were there and you left in 91, you said, right?
Yeah, I left in 91 when I went to the Q course.
Okay, we're going to have to talk more about it. Keep going.
All right, so I get there in '88, and this is old 3rd Battalion area where Ranger School is now.
Right.
Yes.
Right? Where no one can hear you scream.
Yeah.
So your squad leader takes you out whatever time he feels like it, whenever he comes back drunk.
Fenced-in compound.
Yeah, and you wade through the sewage tunnel under the road, and then you start rolling we made the worm pit because it wasn't a worm pit until we made it. We made it with our bodies. And then, and they're like, nothing grows here again, so we're going to make this the worm pit for Ranger School. That's probably what happened.
Wow.
So if you had a ruthless squad leader, then your life was pretty miserable. And I didn't have a car, and I didn't bring any. I mean, I had the civilian clothes on my back.
You didn't need them though, because I mean, you guys wore black PT shorts and black shirts all the damn time. But when I got there,
but we were out by Harmony.
Yeah,
There was one bus that came twice a day.
Yeah.
On the weekdays or something like that. If you didn't have a car and you didn't know anybody or no one was going to drive you around, you stuck there with all the NCOs that decided not to leave that day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got really strong and, I just ate mess hall food and I went out on the bus on a weekend once in a while. And that was my life for a long time, for 3-4 months. But we were only in the compound. We moved to the other compound within probably 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and
then you could.
But you thought that was nice though, the new one that you went to,
because I could actually go to a movie and get and then I ended up getting a car soon after that. But it was tough.
When did you end up going to Ranger School?
So I went to Ranger School in '89, right before Panama.
Okay.
So I don't know what your experience was. You had to get to Ranger School to get it. I came in as a PFC because I had college.
Okay.
And so I was a PFC for 2 years, and other people were getting promoted to PFC. And then usually it's first come first serve if you're fit, right?
Yes.
But they would make exceptions for people who were just exceptionally gifted in the physical area. And there's always that one guy that ran track in school and he won like state, and stuff like that. And then and things like that would happen. And I was silent for a while, and then I was like, hey, what the hell? And he's like, well, you're going to go. I was like, no, why? Why is he first? He came a year after me. Well, he runs really fast. Like, I have a 300 PT test. I exceed the standards. Why are you bumping me? So it took me 2 years, and a lot of guys went before me. I was kind of pissed about it. So, and then I get to Ranger School. I got recycled twice. I got recycled in the mountains and desert. And so in Utah. And then I finally get through and I got stuck in a cycle break. So, I was there for
extra long.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I get out and finally, in fact, I graduated in Utah because the plane broke down. So I think we were the only people, when you pull up the photo online, it's in Utah. There's no guests or anything. It's just us.
Wow. Okay.
I get back and we do the EIB, and I already had my EIB because every private gets an EIB, and now I'm an EIB instructor all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, some of the ranger instructors that were maybe partly responsible for recycling me had to get their EIB. And
man!
And so they're like,
how the tables have turned.
Ranger School is on Fort Benning, and 3rd Battalion's running the EIB. Well, we'll just go over there.
Yeah.
I had the IMT lane.
Ooh,
with the God gun, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, you know, they're removing it, and they're almost there, and like, nee, oh man,
bummer.
I have to do that one again. So it was fun. I did pass them. I'm not that mean, but I had some
Made
fun
work
with
for
it.
it.
And they would recognize me too. It's like, you look familiar. Did I just pass you in Ranger School? It's like, no, as a matter of fact, you didn't.
That is hilarious.
Time to go back.
It's a small world. It's a real small world.
So we do the EIB, and then straight after that is Panama. You know, we get alerted.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so long ago now. God, I can't believe it's so long ago. But we get alerted, and someone's got a keg in the hallway, and they're calling everyone in. And I think we had 3 days to prep and plan everything. Here's a funny story. I was just a stupid kid. I may have been to college, and they held me. The whole freaking platoon held it against me because they didn't have college. They're like, "Oh, college boy, you're so smart." I was like, obviously not, because I'm here.
Yeah, you were there for a year,
That's
and
right.
you're like,
that's right. And I flunked out, so it's just like you went. So, but I did push-ups a lot for that, and then and really, I didn't, as much as I traveled around the world. I never went to South America, and I didn't really learn outside what I was supposed to learn.
Your bubble. Yeah.
Right. So, did I know where Panama was? No.
Yeah.
And when they were briefing the plan, when my squad leader and everyone was briefing the plan on the terrain model, and when we all went to one squad at a time went in there and they're briefing what your plan is, it may have been a little racist, but they're like, okay, the LBGs are here, here, and here, here. And I thought the LBGs were the bad guys.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't figure this out till like a year later. It was little brown guys. I thought that was the name of like the FARC. I thought it was the FARC. I thought
it was an acronym.
I thought it was an acronym for the bad guys.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, LBG, you know.
Yeah.
So then my platoon, I'm a PFC with a tab, and I think I hadn't been promoted yet, and the platoon sergeant wanted me as his driver because I was Ranger tabbed.
Okay.
And so he pulled me out of my squad against my squad leader's wishes, and said, "You're my driver." And we practiced on stuff before and done this, but I'd never been a driver before, mainly because I can't drive a stick. And all the Jeeps back then were sticks, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I don't know if I'm the smartest choice. Shut up and drive. I was like, roger that. So I barely get it into front. He didn't see it. I barely got it in front of in the parking place for the start of the exercise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not going to go well. And so he gets in. He's like, all right, let's go. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I can't drive I can't drive a stick. He's like, what the hell? He's like, you get over here. You're jumping. Get on that stick.
Wow.
And that's the only reason I jumped.
Wow.
Otherwise, I would have drove in.
Holy smokes, that's kind of lucky.
Well,
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, because then I jumped and I hit a flagpole and it broke my leg. So
Lucky.
Yeah.
And I was like the last one out of the bird. I broke my leg. I had to crawl for a mile.
Holy shit.
And then finally I got to the somewhere someone could find me, and then they evacuated me that night, and I was in San Antonio that night.
Wow.
There was a similar guy that I knew over there, and I cannot remember his name, and I think I even shared this on the podcast, but it was somebody that I work with a lot within the compound. He was an E6, and he ended up being the retention NCO over there. I want to say he was Charlie Company, though, but anyway, he broke his hip. He landed on the airfield.
Yeah.
Broke his hip and everything, and he hated his Purple Heart, despised it, everything, because he felt like, he didn't even get a chance to fire his weapon, and
so
it was all a bad scene for him.
I did fire, but I don't know if I hit anything because they were firing at me because I had to cross the airfield. So and I had a saw because that's fun.
Yeah.
And then, so I buried my ruck. When I didn't realize I broke my leg. I hit the flagpole. I hit the ground. I was stoked, and something hurt. I stood up with my backpack and I was limping. And I had a tib fib fracture, but it wasn't bad yet. And then I stepped over
It's already sounding painful.
Yeah, I stepped over like a little ditch.
Yeah.
And my leg gave out. And I was like, oh, it's not gonna work. So I buried the ruck, and I had to keep the saw. It was the only thing I had.
Of course.
So, ka-chunk.
Yeah.
Ka-chunk, crawl, ka-chunk, crawl. And that was my method to get. And then I got to the airfield just as the sun was coming up, and then I was like, ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. And then someone started shooting at me, and so I started rolling, and I got the other side, and I shot some rounds. He stopped firing at me, and then I ka-chunked on.
Oh my God, man! So okay,
That's freaking awesome to hear about. I don't want to go do it, but it sounds cool to hear about.
So I've got a question because he made a comment, and I've not been able to verify this yet. 82nd do a Hollywood jump?
I don't know because
Okay.
I was probably gone by the time I landed.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have landed after I got into the TMC.
Well, from what I understand, when the objective was secured, that's when the 82nd jumped in. They did. Now, anybody that was listening, that's 82nd, that was a part of that whole thing. I'm just telling you what I was told. This is somebody that shared the story with me, but I've not been able to validate that.
Doesn't make sense. I actually, unfortunately, my friend passed away, but I never asked him. He jumped in at 82nd. He had a jump start, same jump I did a couple hours later, I guess. But I never asked him. Didn't matter. They jumped out thinking they were going to get shot at. Same mentality. Then I get to the bed. I finally get to a med shed with some help, and they're busy with people who are actually shot. And they give me I just LNU splint myself, and then they let me sit there until a plane takes me back to San Antonio.
Wow.
And then,
How long did it take before you were out of San Antonio and back at Benning?
So I was in San Antonio for I think a week, and they wanted to. This is the first thing that's happened in like 8 years, so they were trying to pony it up. So someone thought it was a bright idea to take us to clothing and sales and get us put in Class A's, but they didn't. Yeah. But the San Antonio Class A's didn't have any of our badges, and it was just stupid. And so the PAO or whoever was in charge of us was like, everyone gets fitted for so you can go back and you can reach out. And I was like, I think this is a really stupid idea. I think we should just get BDUs. And she's like, really? I was like, I mean, what's the point? We don't have berets. We don't have any of our badges. We're just going to look like little green men. It's stupid. Yeah. And they're like, she called somebody and we got BDUs. So.
Nice.
And then we flew back. They flew me back. I was the only one on the plane. They flew me because I was the only one going. I think I was the only third back guy.
Yeah.
At that point, because I mean, it was just once they put me in plaster, I was good to go. Everyone else who probably had some follow up after if they got shot and stuff. And so I was the only. They had. I don't even know what the name of Fort Benning's hospital is anymore.
Martin
Army.
Yeah, Martin Army. So they had taken like a whole ward, and said, "This is for all our war injuries," and it was just me.
That's freaking awesome.
I had like 24. I had like they rearranged everyone's shifts, and so there's always like 3 nurses. Like, "Are you good? You want some water? Can I get you a snack? Can I go down and buy some food?"
Yeah.
And then
that's awesome.
Then some dude, the XO who didn't get to jump, I guess, or didn't get to go. He brought in the press. Want to talk to you? Do you want to talk to them? I was like, I don't know. Do I? He's like, well, you can. I was like, should I? I was like, I don't know. I was like, all right, sure. So I told the story, and then they printed it in the whatever the local newspaper.
Oh God, yeah. Columbus Ledger, Inquirer,
whatever it was. Yeah. Inquirer sounds good because all the data was wrong. Squad leader led an army of men. They assaulted, and I was like, what are you doing?
Did you catch some blowback for that one?
I got harassed big time for it.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, at least you owned up to it on the podcast, so somebody.
That's right.
They'll call you out if you're wrong.
Yeah, and then I got shipped home. First Sergeant Madison's wife. Joe Madison was our first sergeant when they went in there, and his wife was. I don't know if she's a nurse but I think she was a nurse. But anyway, she was calling me, taking care. And I got a free flight from somewhere. I don't know why. Someone paid for a flight for me to go home, and so my plaster was good. So I flew home, and I called. She invited me to dinner. I don't know how. I think she's going to pick me up, but I could hear. I called her and I could hear the food cooking in the background. I felt really bad. I was like, hey, I got to fly home. No problem. So I flew home and I stayed home for about a month.
Wow.
And then I came back and started training for the Q course.
Okay.
Wait, so before you went to Panama, you were thinking Q at that point, or
no? I wasn't.
Okay, so how did that come about? Where you started thinking about SF?
So I don't know the exact moment. I know what it was. Yeah, I know what it was. We went to Puerto Rico. After I came back from Panama, I went to Puerto Rico, and one of my good friends was a half Italian, half American Ranger who spoke horrible English. But he every day he would go to the library and study English, with tapes and stuff like that. And he ended up going to the Q course too. but he had served his time in the Italian Army first, in the Italian Airborne, and then because he had an Italian, he had like an Italian mother and an American father, so they lived in Italy, so he had to serve his time there for 2 years, and then he decided to join the American Army, and he got a Ranger contract. So his English is so bad, and he'll probably kill me when I tell this story. So we were doing Little Bird missions, and I think he was actually in a Black Hawk, and we all rope in, right? Good thing we did, because he fell out, and he was like,
he's hanging
from his rope that he hooked in.
Tether.
Yeah. And it was the funniest thing. I never saw anyone do it. Terrifying for him.
Yeah, but it's just hanging. So if you don't know, you have like a D-ring, like you'd use for climbing or whatever, and then you've got your nylon tether, and it'll hold like 1,500 pounds or something, and you clip it onto your belt. Yep. And then you clip the other end to the aircraft.
And we didn't have cool belts like we did now. We just had
just went around the webbing.
No, we did it with, we had to tie a whatever.
You do a sling?
Yeah, we did.
Swiss seat?
We just either Swiss seat or it was just around his waist. I don't know. I don't remember which. But we didn't do.
Was it rope or webbing?
It was rope. It was our sling ropes. So we tied whatever in his sling rope, and he was snap, and then it was the end was snap looped in. So he he had a little bit more safety than just that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a Swiss seat or anything.
Yikes.
But
so basically just a loop around your waist.
Yeah. So
at least it was a rope and not a belt. Those are held together with Velcro and a buckle now. And you got the D-ring. And I've rappelled off of that, and you can do it. I don't know.
Wouldn't recommend it.
It's not. That seems uncomfortable, though, hanging from a bird like that.
So we went to Puerto Rico on a mission, a training mission. And him and I were like, we were just kind of, what's next? Is this it? Well, the reality of Rangers, as you know, is it's very pyramid. Yes. There's only so many E5 slots. There's only so many E6 slots. There's only so many E7 slots. So you can only advance. Not everyone can be a team sergeant or a platoon sergeant in the Rangers. Yep. Not everyone can be a squad leader, especially if they're importing them. Yeah. So at some point, most people have to move on. The lucky ones that want to stay don't, and if they want to stay, they prove it. Yeah. But your average Ranger who hasn't proved it, hasn't won Best Ranger 5 times, and hasn't performed way above everyone else, is going to have to move on eventually. And if he doesn't do something JSOC or group, he's going to go into the regular Army, which is the worst fear of every Ranger. Yeah,
unjustifiably, but
right. But I mean, I don't know. I've never been there, but I hear stories. No. No. Some of my best friends are regular Army guys.
Yeah, mine too. I got your back, Rob.
Thanks, guys.
I just don't know anything else. That's my problem. So it's not. But in the Rangers, it's the threat, right?
It's the stigma.
It's the threat. It's like if you get in trouble, you're going to go over there. I don't know what over there is. If they're going to threaten me to it, it sounds bad. So it was like
the
197th, 3 cents short is what we used to call it.
197th over there on Kelly Hill.
Yep. So
and became 3rd Brigade. My mind. Why am I? The guys out of Fort Stewart, 24th ID became 3rd Brigade, 24th ID. Now I think it's something else, and I don't know what it is. Anyway, go ahead. Because they're not there anymore. Yeah. They're not at Benning.
I don't know your experience in the Rangers. My experience was after the 4 years, if a Ranger came in for 4 years, he made a decision. And most of the time the decision wasn't to stay in the Rangers because that wasn't his choice. Mm-hmm. It was either you go to the next level, which it was either SF or JSOC, or you got out, right, or you got thrown out. And those are like your 3 choices. And the thrown outs were already decided. The few people that were going to stay, because I was a E5 by then, right. And so me and him and I, whichever, we decided that we were going to be Green Berets. Yeah. And I got to tell you, didn't know what a Green Beret was. Never read the book. Never saw the movie. Never heard the song. And I just read a pamphlet. And I said, this sounds cool. And I get to learn a language, and I can be like a medic. So my dad always said, when I decided to join the Army, when I took the ASVAB, he said, when you go in there and decide what MOS you want, choose something you can use in the outside world. Right. Because he went in during Vietnam. He was a generator repairman, and he just knew all kinds about all. Still knows all that kind of stuff that I don't know anything about. And then he went into computers after that, so that all played out. And he eventually, before for Ross Perot. He worked for NASA. He was there.
Oh,
he was working for NASA when they landed on the
Houston.
moon.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's a gizmo guy, and so I went in there and said, I want to be an Airborne Ranger, and they're like, okay, sign here. I was like, wait, Dad said something. Oh, something I have to be able to use in that resort. Do they have Airborne Rangers? I'm like, no. I was like, all right, I'll be an Airborne Ranger. And so, so when I went to SF, I had these other options, right? I could be a medic. So I was like, well, I could be a medic. Then I could be a paramedic when I decide to get out. Sure. So that's what I decided to do. And Pierre, because that's an Italian name.
Yes.
Pierre and we just started training we just train like animals. And really, if you're in the Rangers, you're already training like an animal. So there wasn't a whole lot of things to do. But in our free time, we would climb ropes with just our arms. And we would, hey, I don't know what to expect because there was a lot less G2 than there is now, right? And so back then, I mean, you knew there was the long walk, but no one knew how long it was. I was like, I don't know. There seems to be like a time cutoff. They can't make us walk more than 50 miles. So let's just walk 50 miles. So we just to put a, 60-pound ruck and walked 50 miles one weekend. Yeah. And I was like, I walked the 50 miles and I feel okay, so I think I'm good. Yeah. And I never doubted it because I never walked 50 miles again. Right.
Now this is 91.
This is I went to SFAS in 91, so this is 90. So this is by February they cleared me to start doing PT. Yeah. So I started doing PT. We went to Puerto Rico that summer, and then maybe July, August is when, it's like 6 months that with my intent was there. And also, as soon as I outed myself as an SF guy, they made me the NBC guy for the company.
Nice. Oh, nice. They loved you.
And
that was my next question is how was that received?
No, it wasn't received very well at all. And then they all caveated it with, you can train, you'll have more time to train. And I was like,
of course.
Thanks. So they sent me to NBC school. I'm the honor graduate at NBC school. I come back. And then but that means nothing because I'm not really a 54 Bravo or whatever it is. I'm a guy with a certificate, and just bad shit would happen around me all the time because I didn't know what I was doing. And I just go down there and hey, all this equipment needs to be inspected with these -10s and all that stuff. I was like, all right, I'll just read a book and okay, inspected. I checked off. I made everything look nice, and I did the checklist. But someone brought something down and they said, hey, what's this? It was the CS pellets. Oh, shit. But I'd never seen them as pellets. Right. And so I was like, I don't know, let's open it. I had these big, huge industrial fans, and I was in the basement. And, and the fucking shit blows through the whole company, and they're like,
holy shit, that's awesome.
And I was just like,
the good news is you have masks as well, right?
I was just like, I don't know where that came from. So first I was like, what's going on? It's like,
wow, that's amazing.
So
where you went to sign up is exactly at that time frame. I was at Fort Benning. I had just arrived. Actually, I was an in-service recruiter. And now they do that a lot for like SOF and, whether you're going to SF or you're going to PSYOPs or anything like that. But the SF recruiters were different. They were part of USAREC at that time frame, United States Army Recruiting Command. And so they wore the Green Berets. They had the jump wings, but they hadn't gone to SFAS or done anything like that. Right. And that's who you went and saw. And they were my buddies right next door to me. We were good friends and stuff and hooked up. So when you went in there, I was going to ask you, so what did they, so that you've seen the placard that I've got that's up in my office and everything. That's where that came from. What was it that they just kind of showed you films, basically, right? And gave you pamphlets and just said, this is your date?
I was just looking for my next, we'll get into what I'm doing now at the end, but this is kind of where I wanted to, when I got out, I was like, I was so ill prepared for everything. I was so
well. They weren't prepared. That's my whole point too. They couldn't prepare you because they didn't. Right. This was all new for them.
I mean, you were ill prepared for SF.
I was a Ranger. So how ill prepared can you be? I could do land nav. I could run. I was strong. I could climb ropes. That's pretty much if you can do those 4 things. Right. You're pretty much going to graduate SFAS. Yeah, but as long as they get along with you.
The failure rate of Rangers at SFAS was extremely high, 91, 92 time frame. Really? Mm-hmm. And I think it had a lot more to do with struggling with the team event, team area and stuff. But there were a lot of Rangers that got sent home
because they couldn't put up with weakness. I mean, I had to bite my tongue, because the guy that quits when you're carrying whatever. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry. He drops out and it's his turn to freaking carry. And then you're carrying his load. And he's like, and then they say, do you want to quit? He's like, no. And he tries to hold it again, but then he falls out again. And you're just like, I just want to punch him.
Right.
You're going to be okay, dude.
I mean, that's what I was told by those SF recruiters, is that although they were recruiting on Benning, they had better luck with 197 and conventional Army going to SFAS than they did the Rangers, because you guys were very high-end tight, spit shine.
There's no nice Rangers as NCOs.
No,
there's no like, you can make it, buddy. You got it. There's none of that in the Rangers.
Well,
it's like, pick up shit and catch up to that guy.
We don't have to tolerate it in the Rangers, because you're like, well, you can't hack it, you're out.
But
it could be
you're
that
out.
fast.
You're going to go to the 197, which have a higher pass rate in Q course. So this is, I'm helping you.
Yeah.
So how was that then? Well, okay. So fast forward, you get to SFAS.
So I go to SFS, and I pretty much smoke it. And at the end of it,
no challenges for you with your macho Ranger.
I'm not a macho guy. I'm not a macho guy.
Yeah.
But People were pissing me off because they just quit already. And they all those guys ended up quitting anyway, but they just made us suffer the whole time. And so that was my biggest issue going through there. But I bit my tongue and we were fine. That was not a problem. And at the end of it, when we all those of us who passed, people would come up to me and was like, "Hey man, I knew if I could just keep up with you, I'd make it." And I mean, like 5 guys came up with, and I mean, they were all behind me, so I didn't know they were trying to do that. But I was like, oh, well, okay. I was just running as fast as I could. And they're like, if I could see you around that corner. And so I went and I got the medic, because there's never enough medics. So I launched to San Antonio. I fail pharmacology, and I go before a board. I've been there for 9 months, and I fail pharmacology. And they're like, they had civilians.
Wait, you've been in the medical portion
9 months.
9 months. Okay, at this point. Okay. Yeah.
I got there in February, and it was like, I stayed there a lot longer than I was actually in the course, because they didn't know what to do with me after I failed the course. I had to stand by and wait for something to open up and brag, because they reclassify you, because they think if you're a medic, you're smart enough to be a Bravo or whatever.
Right.
So, I think I probably lasted 6 months, and I failed pharmacology. And I consider myself pretty smart. And I was like, well, but yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to. So I go to this board, and there's a couple civilians. There's a non-SF colonel, who's the nurse in charge of this thing, and then there's also, I think, an SF colonel or lieutenant colonel or something over there too. And they hear me. They hear my plea, whatever it is. Why did you fail it? And I was like, oh, it's really hard. There's a lot of stuff. But everyone else is getting recycled up to that point. There's a lot of hands-on stuff that we were doing before that. And they're like, well, you're just not smart enough to be a medic, because you failed an academic portion. Like the hands-on stuff, we can retrain that. That's why all these other guys got recycled. But we're not going to recycle you because you just don't think you're smart enough.
Wow.
What
a blow.
Right. I was like, and so I mean, really, everybody up to this point had been recycled, except I just didn't say the right things, or maybe that's why it was the test. So I went to the first sergeant. He's like, hey, I'd really like, he said, well, what are we going to do with you? And I was like, well, I'm really good at math, and I'd like to be an engineer. Yeah. And he's like, Ranger, you're going to be a Bravo. You're a weapons guy. You know it, and I know it. So now I'm a weapons guy. And to tell you the truth, most of the guys that flunked out were weapons guys. And I stuck around for like 3 or 4 months. I ran a marathon in Houston. And then I went to the Bravo course and passed the Bravo course and get to 7th group. So
now, how did you pick 7th?
Good question. No, I did not on my list at all. So I wanted to go to places I'd never been. Right. And I didn't consider South America. I was like, North America, South America. Yeah. So I wanted to go to Africa. So I put 3rd group. I wanted to go back to Iran and get my comic book collection that I had to leave there.
Yeah.
So that one, 5th group. And I put 10th group because I wanted to go to Europe, because I loved Europe. And unbeknownst to me, one of the tabbed guys that got kicked out, who became a good friend of mine, he was divorcing and kicked out and like living in his team room, and he didn't have a car. So I lent him my car while I was in Robin Sage. And in fact, I had lost my ID card, and I got a new one before I went to Robin Sage, but it had fallen under my seat.
Right.
So being the good buddy that he is, that since he borrowed my car, he cleaned my car out, found my ID card. He's like, oh shit, he's going to need this Robin Sage. Goes through his buddy rat line, gets it to my instructor. Hey, can you give this to Randy and don't give him a hard time? He's doing me a favor. Yeah. But so the guy's he's not going to kick me out for not having my ID card, but he's going to confront me with it and be an asshole.
Right.
So he's like, hey, come here. Where's your ID card? I was like, right here.
Yeah.
Well, what's this? I don't know. Where did you get that? He's like, shut up. So I was like, a weird confrontation. Yeah. And then I was like, and then he said, hey, did you get your ID card? When I got out, he's like, did you get your ID card? I was like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So anyway, he was working in SWIC as the person who decided where people go.
Oh, shit.
And he was a 7th Group guy, and he thought I would like 7th Group better.
Wow. So he hooked you up.
So he hooked me up, and I didn't find that out till I was already in the language course.
Cool hookup, bro.
And then he's like, hey, did you get 7th Group? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I put you in for 7th Group. I ripped up your other shit. So I show up as 7th Group, and I don't even take leave. I go to the Q course. I get a 2+2+ in Spanish out of the Q course. I didn't have any background in Spanish at all. And I go to, I just say, I want to deploy. I want to go. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I was single, and I was like, take me, go. I want to go to group. Everyone else went on leave. They've been in the Q course forever. I'm like, I sign in. They assign me to Bravo 37, and the sergeant major's like, I don't even remember his name. He's like, oh, all right, yeah, we need armor.
Oh,
I was
shit.
like, what the fuck? Don't you have armor? I mean, I'm an 18 Bravo. I don't know. I maybe got my MOS mixed up, but I'm a special force. I'm a combat vet with a Purple Heart, a CIB, an EIB, a Ranger tab, and I'm an 18 Bravo.
And an NBC.
And I speak Spanish. and an NBC seal. And he's like, yeah, but we need an armor. I was like, what does that have to, we keep saying that. What does that have to do with me, Sergeant Major? I don't understand. He's like, well, we don't have armors assigned to us, T&E, so we put our 18 Bravos in the arms room. I was like, how long? This guy's been there for like a year. I was like, well, how long do I have to be there? I was like 3 months. I was like, are you sure? He's like, what the fuck are you asking me? Am I sure? I was like, you just said the last guy was there for a year. Yeah, but he was like injured or something. Yeah, you're only 3 months. I was like, can I get that in writing? He's like, get the fuck out of here. And so, but the next day, I got an official document saying I was assigned there for, not that it's worth the paper he printed on, but he signed it and said these are the dates I was going to be there.
Okay.
I was like, great. Well, what do I know about being in armor? What do I know about signing shit out? Like, teams would come and like, hey, we're going to get our guns. Like, okay. I didn't. Oh,
man.
I didn't lose anything, but I didn't.
Holy
it could have been bad.
That is the razor's edge, man. You're just flirting with disaster.
Why would I know this shit? I don't know. If they did an investigation, would I even get in trouble? I mean, I don't know this shit.
Yeah, no, that's a fact.
So, but it's just pure luck. And also, I didn't understand. Like, I kind of got the guy that leaving was a kind of not a very helpful person either.
Right.
But he's like, yeah, you're going to have to do these inspections every month. And I was like, oh, all these fucking weapons and nods are all out of order. It's a lot easier if I just take them out of these boxes and put them in order. And then when I got to do the inspection, I just lift them out, and then it's a lot easier. So I do that. And the teams were like, what the hell? Don't touch my gun. I was like, what?
You forgot to tell them the story that you became the NBC NCO, and that didn't work out too well. I would have slipped that one in and said, well, I don't know if you want me to be the armor. Let me tell you about my
I would have hung on to some of those CS pellets.
So
useful.
So the first sergeant, because he had a group guy that looked pretty fit, he wanted to make me in charge of remedial PT. And I was like, wow. I'm training for like a triathlon. I was like, I don't think that they want to do PT with you. Oh, you'll be perfect. I was like, I mean, what am I? And so he did his idea of super PT was he'd drive everyone in a deuce and a half, I guess, back then, and ship us out down Long Street 10 miles.
Right.
Like, everyone get out and run home. And he was a runner. He was a little he's an SF guy, a little Latino guy. You could tell he's a runner. I'm not a bad runner, not the best runner, but not a bad runner. But I can give old people a run for their money usually. And he's probably 10 years over me. So, I mean, I'm like 23 now or something, right? So, I take off and he takes off and we're like neck and neck all the way. And so we get there and he's like, all right, I believe you. You're trying out for a triathlon. You can do whatever you want.
Nice.
So I put a sign on my arms room and said, I will be in work at 1 to 4 if you need me. Otherwise, beat me. And I do PT every morning from 6 to 12. I run through the woods to the gym. I work out in the gym. I go to the pool, swim for an hour. I run back. I got a jump rope in there. I do a jump rope. And then I sleep. Because if they're deployed, there's no one drawing weapons. And then I sleep all day.
Sounds awesome.
It was good for them.
And it was only for 3 months.
It was 3 months.
Did you go back and say, can I extend this?
No. I went back and said, hey, you got a replacement for me? You said 3 months. I mean, if you're good as your word, get the fuck out of here. It's like, all right. But I reminded him. And also something else that affected my life was that I started getting distribution because I'm the armorer. So stuff comes through my office that I don't care about. And sometimes I do. And we're looking for volunteers for Lancero School. Cool. And I'm like, hey, the supply guy was next to me. I was like, hey, what's Lancero School? He's like, it's like Ranger School, but it's in Spanish. I was like, I mean, it's got to be better than the arms room. So I signed my name, and I
had no clue what this was.
So at this time, I'm super fit, and I don't know how the systems work, right? Yeah. So I signed my name and I put it through the distribution, and then there's like a phone number in the bottom or something, and I was like. So I'm calling the Ops Sergeant Major of group like every day. He's like, hey, did I get the part to Lancero? I was like, I don't know. We haven't figured it out. I was like, hey, did I get the part? Like,
do you know he's the Ops Sergeant Major?
I have no idea who
he's just a guy in the
He's the guy's phone number. Like, if you got a question, did I get it?
That's
who
funny.
are you? What? So finally, they call the 8 of us together, or 7 of us, and say, okay, this is your briefing. This is what Lancero School's like, blah, blah, blah. At one point, they'll beat the shit out of you for no reason, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so that's all I know about that. And then I don't hear anything else about it.
So you don't have a date or anything?
I don't have a date or anything. So I think that was early on in my 3 months. So my 3 months are coming to an end. I'm bugging the other sergeant major, just a thorn in sergeant major's side. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, you're going to get. So the day I was supposed to get out, this guy comes in. I say, this is what I do. I just hand weapons out and they come back. And that's what I do. Don't move stuff because they don't like that. and then I leave and I get to my team. So I show up in my team. They're doing an inventory, 100% inventory. They're like, they don't have a medic assigned. So they're like, hey, you're kind of like a half of a medic. Can you
half of a medic?
Can you inventory like the right butt plunger tools and stuff? We don't know what those are. I was like, sure. So I'm laying it all out. And my team leader comes over and is like, hey, I was in a meeting this morning. I saw your name on a list to go to Lancero School. You probably need to go talk to the B team. Actually, I skipped one part. They assigned me to the B team because my team wasn't back. Okay. So I'm at the B team, and I'm like, what the fuck's the B team? Like, I still didn't know what the fuck is going on, right? My parents, at my Q course graduation, my parents gave me a tape of the Battle of the Green Berets. And I was like, what's this? I was like, it's the Battle of the Green Berets. I was like, I don't know what that is.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So I figured everything out by now, and I spend my days studying South America. I like the geography, the capital cities, the history of each country. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I want to be ready, and I figured that's what Green Berets did. And they assigned me to the B team. That's what I did when I wasn't sleeping in the arms room. Right. And then I get there, and they put me on the B team, and I'm like, what the fuck's the B team? And I was like, it's the people that support the A teams. I was like, so what do we do here? It's like, we do support stuff. I was like, okay, can I, I heard that you can walk in on SEER school. So could I walk in on a SEER school slot? Yeah. Like, I don't know. Yeah, sure, I guess. So the next day I went to SEER school and I didn't tell anybody because because they said I could go. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know I had to sign out because in the Rangers, this is big boy rules, right? He said I could go. I went over there and I sat in the back of the room and they called all the names out and the guy's like, who are you? I was like, Randy Surles. And they're like, where are you from? I was like, 7th group. And he's like, let me see your paperwork. He's like, I just came here to see if you had a standby slot. And he's like, hey, your physical's overdue. I was like, yeah, I was in the Q course for like 2 years because I went to the medic course and I just got out. And he's like, 7th group? I was like, yep. He's like, all right, get in the truck. So
Nice.
so I go to SEER school, and
No, but they don't know you're
I'm
there.
AWOL,
Right.
right?
AWOL at SEER school. Yeah.
So I was AWOL at SEER school. So I go to SEER school. I get out of SEER school. I graduate SEER school. I come back that day.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Where in the fuck were you?" I was like, "I was in SEER school. Here's my diploma. You said I could go to SEER school. Did you not say I could go to SEER school?" I was like, "Yeah, I did. I didn't know you were going to go like the next day." I was like, "Well, you didn't ask, but you said I could go to SEER school." So I went to SEER school. He's
That
like,
is amazing.
And then so he's like, "Okay, your team's here. Go see your team." So that's when they made me lay it out. And he's like, "Hey, I saw your name on a list to go to Lancero School. Go talk to the B team." I was like, "All right." So I go back there. He's like, "Hey," my commander said, "Oh yeah, the Lancero School thing. Yeah, it's Friday." They're like, "Yeah, these are your orders. You leave Monday.
Yeah.
Here's your packing list."
Right out of SEER school.
Right out of SEER school. So then we don't have a medic on our team, and he's like, "Oh, you need to get some medicines from the medic." Like, what do I need to get from the medic? So I go to a different team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Hey, I'm supposed to go to Lancero School and I'm a medic." And he's like, "Oh, come here, I'll hook you up." And it's like the blue pill and the red pill, and he's like trying to write notes on there, and I was like, okay. And then I go buy a bunch of stuff, and this is back before credit cards, right? So go get your advance. Here's $10,000. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Go buy. Here's your ticket. I was like, okay. And then I go to Monday. I show up, and I thought it was like high school sports. So I showed up in my suit, my only suit I owned, my confirmation suit, and to ride on a plane, because you dress up when you go places, right? Yeah. So the other guys were all in jeans and like t-shirts and like, what are you doing, man?
You look super cool.
They'd all been on teams forever, right? And I was like, I'd been on a team for a day. And I was like, I'm here to go to Lancero School. It's going to be great. And they're like, yeah, Scooter, you sit over there. And of course, all of them are Latin speakers. One's a Colombian. There's 2 Puerto Ricans. There's 2 Mexicans. There's 1 white guy, but he speaks fluent Spanish.
Yeah.
Or he speaks Spanish. Let's just say that. And so they're all been on teams for a while. And they're like, oh my God, who's going to watch this guy? And of course, my Spanish had never been tried out in any country but the United States, and it was crap. But I got a 2+2+, so I looked good on paper. So I get down there, and they're like, don't go anywhere without us. I was like, why? I speak Spanish. Like, you talk to that taxi driver, he has no idea what you're saying. No, you're gonna get lost. So they kind of heard me. We take the we get there. We get like a month to acclimatize. We start Lancero School. We all shave our heads because I don't know why they shave their head, and they're like, you're shaving your head. And I was like, okay. I mean, some of them are Rangers.
Makes sense.
And so they easily took charge of me. They just told me to do shit.
Yeah.
So I'm an E6 now. I got promoted in the Q course.
Right.
And so we just do Lancero School, which is probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
So talk about first, where is Lancero School, and how did Lancero School come about?
So Lancero School is the Colombian version of our Ranger School, for lack of a better word, with a lot of extra M&Ms involved.
Okay.
It basically, we helped create Lancero School to create their kind of commandos, Ranger qualified people to help them fight the FARC. Right. And so we teach them patrolling, kind of tweaked a little bit towards their rules and laws and laws of war and stuff like that. And we have an American exchange PEP instructor that's usually a captain or a major who comes from SS, speaks Spanish, has worked in South America, and he worked on their staff. Okay. So PEP is a personnel exchange program. So ideally, we send one to there, and they send one to our Ranger School. So if you ever saw a Colombian instructor working there, that's part of the PEP exchange program. Okay. And then, so it's based on our Ranger School without any of the safety concerns. I guess that's the best way to explain it.
And without any rules, really, doing some ways, or
I mean, there's. Yeah, so they grade it all on a point system that is basically the same as what's that comedy show that Drew Carey used to run, where the points don't matter.
Yeah, the whose line is it
whose line it is way. Yeah, you get 1,000 points, but the points don't matter. Yeah. Well, kind of like that. So while they have like major pluses and major minuses of points, like you get 500 points, and so if you have to get a minimum of so many points by the end, and every patrol is worth so many points, but everyone gets the same score on the patrol. So if you're not working as a team, then you don't get a leadership go or no go, as far as I understand. I'm not behind the scenes, I'm not the instructor, but the way I understood it was, you get 1,000 points for the patrol, and if you fail the patrol, everyone gets 0.
Yeah.
But then you do all the physical events, and you can get 500,000 points for whatever. And it was, I mean, for instance, the knots, right? I know I recycle mountains phase. I know knots. They're all the same knots. I just have to learn the new words for the knots, right?
Right.
And so once I don't even need to know that, because they can go ready the whatever knot, and this I just look at what this idiot's tying, and then I'm like, okay, it's done. And I got like an extra 2,000 points because I finished before anyone, and without even understanding a word of what was going on, right?
There was a benefit to failing mountain phase.
There you go. Yeah. It's all comes together.
That's the one you want to recycle. If you got to recycle mountain phase.
And we were all I mean, for the most part, most Americans were in the top 10 of the fitness things. Like we run faster. There were some quick guys down there because they played football and stuff. But for the most part, they weren't fed as well as we were, and we ran faster than they do. I mean, I was probably top 2-3 runner in the whole 200 people that were there.
How much you weighed going in?
Probably 185, 190 or something. And there was pull ups like they could do 2, 3. I if I did 10, I was like way exceeding. Push ups, their standards for push ups a lot lower than ours, like 50%. So if I maxed ours out, I was maxing that out. Sit ups, they did sit ups a different way than we did, which was easier. So you can actually swing your arms.
Oh wow. Okay.
So anyway,
how long is the school overall?
Forever. It's like 10 weeks. It might change, but it was 10 weeks, and it was from like September to like halfway through December.
Yikes. Okay.
And they have 3 phases. I think they have 4 phases now, but they had like the kind of city week, kind of learning all the stuff phase. Then they had a mountain phase, which wasn't very mountainy, and then they had jungle phase.
Okay.
And the jungle phase is rumored to be in a jungle area where the FARC may or may not operate. So you get actual real ammo, and you have to put the right ammo when you're attacking the Op 4 that are good guys, acting like bad guys. So if you mess that up, it can go poorly.
There's some serious consequences.
And also at night, when you guard your patrol base, you put live ammo in because, and then at least you're going to be able to sleep because no one's going to attack you because they're going to attack you with live ammo. Yeah. Put your live ammo in. I was like, I don't get to sleep tonight. Put your fake ammo in. It's like, we're going to be attacked. Now they didn't have blank adapters for their. They had Galils, Israeli Galils, that were basically you fire it as it's falling apart and try to put it back together. They're pretty old. And they didn't have blank adapters. So when you're doing a raid, it's like bang, bang, bang. It's pretty.
You're doing World War II style.
It's kind of lame. But anyway, so, it was hard physically. Walking through the jungle, that rhyme is true because that is no joke. Sucks so bad. And every day at 5 o'clock,
humidity wise, or just was it?
It was just walking up a mountain of mud, sliding down a mountain of mud, and every day at like 4:45, we'd stop to watch the wall of rain come towards us and wash over us, And if we're not camped by then we're wet. So we're, and we
got to worry about trench foot and everything like that. Pretty bad.
I mean, I'm pretty confident I broke my thumb and reset it myself, and the other guy broke a rib because there's some stuff. With the hand to hand is like they don't teach you very good hand to hand. It's like basic judo throws and stuff. Yeah. But then they're like, you go, and I want to see blood. So it's just like bam, 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 bam. I mean, there's just the Colombian American that was with us is just a huge guy. Yeah, and in his 50s, he was competing at the what's the big thing everyone's doing? With the
CrossFit.
CrossFit. Yeah. He was doing over 50 CrossFit stuff.
Oh shit!
Just a couple of years ago, he was in it for like 3 years ago. He's super fit,
freak of nature.
And so we had to fight our Lancero buddies, which didn't make any sense. Why are you going to fight the guy you're going to spend the time with, right? So his Lancero buddy was this kind of had a big mouth, and he was another foreign student too. I don't know where he was from, but basically, this guy was like, he's just squeezing his neck against his chest, and they're like, okay, stop, trying to stop him from killing him. And then another guy came, the other white guy, he was huge. He was like 6'3", and they're like, ready, go. And the white guy went, uppercut, and that guy went sailing back, and the white guy jumped on him and was like, bam, bam, blood, teeth, bam, bam. And I'm just like, oh my God. And my partners, we're next. My partner's looking at me going, oh fuck, I'm going to get killed.
Yeah.
And because he was not very big either. I'm still great friends with him too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they stopped that fight like 3 times. And the third time they started it, and the second time the guys kind of weave in, like, ready to go.
Oh, so
and the white guy goes, bam, bam, bam.
Again.
There was like a time limit.
So it wasn't like, oh God.
Wow. It's like a round.
So the rest of you guys are sitting there watching this and going, okay, we got to play this out a little bit. Stretch it, Paul, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because all the, everyone else is about the same size. The Americans were the big ones. You know? And then the third time they're like, ready. And they said, they were about to say go. They're like, ready, go. And the guy turned around and booked and ran out of the circle, down the street. Gone. And so when me and my buddy did it, we were just like, we totally faked it, and we totally had to do push-ups and do running, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah,
oh my God. Well, hell yeah, I didn't know that you could fake it and get through it.
Well, I mean, I think some of those guys didn't like their partners. I mean, my partner went through a lot of shit for me because I didn't speak Spanish the way I couldn't understand their fast, and I couldn't understand their accent.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to say the Lancero Creed like 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And they didn't say, like, someone says it and you repeat it. It's like everyone says it at the same time. Together. So it's like, soy Lancero de Colombia. Did we get it right? And so I could not remember past the first stanza. There was like 6 stanzas. I couldn't remember past the first stanza because the words were specific to Colombia. There were places, and they were like in the war, in the Battle of Toranaga, this guy Melendez did this or whatever, So that's kind of stuff that was going on in the later stanzas. And I would study every night, but I'd be so tired anyway. And I'm just so I got the first one. So the first one, I'd be like, everyone else yelling. I was like, soy Lancero de Colombia, lleva mi sangre, da da da. And I get to the next one, I'd be like, ba 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 ba, da 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 da, ba 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 ba, da 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 da. And the instructors figured it out. The instructor's like right here. I'm like, ba 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 ba, da 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 da. And he's like, you don't know this. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm saying it. And he's like, that doesn't sound like anything like our creed. And I was like, I have a really heavy accent. I don't know.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I'm a Texan.
I'm doing lots of push-ups.
So there's another thing. The song was it was like a hymnal. It was like lealtad, valor, sacrificio, tres palabras, que me lleva. And see, I know it now.
Yeah.
Wow.
It only takes 3 months to hammer that in, man. And so, so just like a ranger, you have to run everywhere.
Yeah.
And you have to say the hymnal.
Yeah.
But I only knew, like I said, like the first 10 words. So I just run in like lealtad, valor, sacrifice, safe.
Yeah, so you run it as fast as you can. Yeah,
right.
Trying to beat the song.
So, and the instructors will be watching me, like ready to jump on me. Is like safe.
That is funny.
So yeah, I mean, and of course your Lancero buddy gets tortured every time you get tortured. It's like, hey, you're stupid. Go run 5 laps and do 500 push-ups or something like that. And so you can earn going back to the points, you can earn and lose points like that. So hey, we're rappelling off a really dinky tower, and it was Australian. And the guy's like, are you scared? Are you scared, gringo? I was like, yeah, I'm really scared. And I jumped off and went Ranger, and I didn't break at all because it was a slow slide.
Yeah.
And everyone freaked out, and they belayed me, and I got stuck up there. And then, of course, they belayed me so quick I lost it.
Oh, shit.
And so I'm stuck there with their belay because they pulled the rope. And then they said, minus 5,000 points, violation, danger violation or whatever.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, whatever, man. So it was just random stuff. And then the obstacle courses were like people like breaking their legs, breaking their necks on them because they're not,
they just weren't built well, or they?
No. So one obstacle was the worst. It was like 8 foot. You had to climb this wood thing without using your hands. And then you had to walk along a plank, 8 foot. And then you had to jump onto a perpendicular plank that was 6 foot.
Oh,
so it was 2 foot down and like maybe a foot in front of you, and then walk that way. That got the most people. That was like a broken leg waiting to happen. So there's always a couple people that bid it.
Yikes.
So what was other than the mud and the jungle part of it, what was, and the beating,
It was mental.
It was mental, okay.
So even in the, even when you get to SFAS, even if in that time when you didn't have all the G2, when you got there, other people had knew someone who did something. So we're like, oh, you know, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do that. So you get kind of aware of what's going on. The other thing is everyone in the Lancero School that was Colombian knew exactly what was going to happen every day.
Right.
So for me, it was like, what new hell is today going to be open for? You know, what are we going to do today? What stupid, like they changed this in the curriculum since I went, but they used to have truck jumping. If you get ambushed, you don't want to show weakness in front of the FARC. So you're always standing in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
There's a truck jump master who's hooked into the truck. And everyone's ready to go at any moment. And if you get ambushed, they're like, go, tap out. And everyone jumps out of the back of the truck at 50 or 60 kilometers per hour.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you have to jump. And by the way, if you ever have to do this and you have a rifle in your hands, make sure you straighten your arms, because if you don't, you're going to smack yourself in the face.
Holy shit.
If you understood Spanish, you would know that. So, and you jump out of there with your rucks and everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple of people broke their legs or sprained their ankles and stuff.
Yeah.
For most part, it was you do a parachute fall on the way out, and you don't actually fall down because you're getting dragged back by the momentum, and you kind of hop backwards, and then you're ready to charge into the ambush line and get shot.
Right.
I guess.
Seems like solid.
But in reality, so it doesn't seem solid for us.
Yeah.
But the FARC ambushes were like 3 guys.
Okay.
And not always with a machine gun.
Okay.
And so really, we need to catch those guys is what they're thinking.
Gotcha.
And so it didn't make sense to years later for me. But I was like, we saw a video on it. And we were in a tent, and they brought a generator in, they put a TV, and they said, okay, so today we're going to do truck jumping. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I don't understand anything that's going on. I'm like, what is going on? What are they doing? And we did it, crawl, walk, run. We did it with nothing, with a rifle, with LB rifle, with LB rifle ruck, stationary. Yeah. Then we did all of that with slow moving truck. Then we all did it in combat speed until everyone broke their ankles. So we did that. We did. I mean,
amazing.
The worst day was the Pista de Combate Efectivo. So it's like
Did you get that, Paul?
Yeah.
The basically the obstacle course of combat effectiveness or something like that.
Okay.
And once again, another big surprise for me. Other people knew what was going on. Probably the Americans that spoke Spanish probably got informed by their fellow people. I was the only American in my squad. And so everyone else had 2 Americans in each of their squads, and they all spoke Spanish. I did not speak Spanish, and they stuck me in my own squad. That's smart.
Well, you did according to the Army. That's the reason why you...
Yeah, but the Colombians didn't know that. The Colombians could just like, well, can you explain this to the retarded, American who doesn't understand our language? And then, so this day, we put all our rucks down. We've been hiking. It was in the mountain phase. We've been hiking all day, all week, actually, and doing raids and stuff. And then they're like, they start going first squad, second squad, third squad. So we get the first part of it is a trench with not Constantine wire, bob wire.
Really?
Like it came already, and they pulled it out and stretched it out, and you have to it comes like this, and you have to crawl through the center of it. So the first guys got it the worst, but all the guys in front of me were smaller than me, so it didn't matter.
Right.
So you have to spread it out and crawl through the center of the wire in this trench that has thorns and glass and stinks with piss. Who knows? Yeah. So because piss is always good for an infection that's been rusted bob wire. Anyway, so we're going through it, and then there's instructors along the side yelling at you, hitting you with sticks. And then there's fires on the side of it, and they're throwing coals on you as you go. They're like, go faster, go faster.
Good training.
It was great training.
Wow.
Awesome. And so we get, we get along, and everyone starts getting kind of an instructor that adopts you. Okay. And there was an instructor that spoke perfect English. And this is the psyops of the thing, I guess, because he's like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, pretty good. And he's like, I'm pretty good, and as I'm pulling the wire and trying to keep crawling, he's like, so why are you here? I mean, do you have to be here? I mean, you could quit. You could go home, eat McDonald's. You could have McDonald's tonight. You got McDonald's downtown if you wanted to quit. Dunkin's Donuts. I mean, is there really a reason for you to be here? I was like, I'm fine. I'm good. Yeah. No problems here. So we get through that. I mean, it takes forever. And I had like, I didn't have a coat left. I had,
Sure.
I had like the rags. I had a shirt was around my neck, but there was nothing connecting. It was just a rag.
Yeah.
My pants from my mid thigh down were gone. My boot laces were gone. My boots were a wreck.
Yeah.
And scratches everywhere. And they're like, okay, go to the next station. So I get to the next station, and there's a big flat rock with some words written on it. And it says, Nunca baja su guardia, which in Spanish, if you speak Spanish, means never lower your guard. Now, some of the words were a little smeared in my defense, and we've already established my Spanish wasn't great.
Right.
So I thought it said never go beneath your war.
Makes perfect sense.
Instead of never go beneath your guard, which is the way I was translating in my head. I thought it said never go beneath your war, which, war, guardia, guerra is like one letter.
Sure.
And so I was like, he's like, do you understand what it says? I was like, not really. And then he punches me as hard as he can in the stomach.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not ready for it, because why would someone punch me in the stomach? Why would an instructor punch me in the stomach? So I double over, and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? He's like, read the rock. I was like, nunca, and I thought I wanted to read it out loud. So I said, nunca baja su guerra, or su guerra. Yeah. And he's like, do you understand? I was like, no. And this guy behind me hits me in the kidney as hard as he can. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And he's like, read the rock. I was like, I don't understand. I was like, I mixed Spanish, and he was like, yo nunca understand the fucking rocka. Yo nunca voy a understand the fucking rocka. and I'm just yelling at the fucking instructor. And the instructors, and I saw a video later, because they take video of all this shit because they think it's funny, and it's
great.
like, and the instructors are trying to not to laugh, especially the guy behind me, right? And I mean, the guy behind me is laughing, and this guy's like, And so the American instructor is at the next phase, and he's on this hill, and he's just like, he's got his hat, and he's like, never lower your guard, dumbass. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense then, doesn't it? That makes complete sense. I get it now. I understand. I understand the point of this exercise. I mean, kind of, but so he's like, do you understand? I was like, yes, I understand. It's like, a Lancero never lets his guard down.
Yeah.
You got that? I was like, got it, man. So then he's like, all right, next phase. See that guy, that soldier on that gorilla on that hill over by the American?
Yeah.
He's like, yep. He's like, 3 minutes, hand-to-hand combat, kick his ass. I was like, you got it.
Yeah.
So we go over there, and it's just a little, like, 15-year-old kid that's a soldier.
Yeah.
And he's in a little karate kid, whatever.
No way.
He's in the one-legged one.
The crane.
The crane. He's in the
crane.
crane. He's in the crane. He's like, I was like, I am gonna beat your ass. And then the 8 guys behind me sneak up and pin me to the ground and kick the shit out of me for 3 minutes.
Because you let your guard down.
Because I let my guard down. I was focused on the crane. And so, but and so I'm like, I'm pulling their feet. But I got this on film too. I don't have it anymore. Someone has it. But it's terrible. It's back with no digital film, real film, right? So I'm doing the best I can, and I protect myself as best I can. But I'm pissed, I'm bruised, and they didn't break anything, but they broke the other guy's rib. So it depends how well you protected yourself or whatever. So I get up. So they let me up. After 3 minutes, they let me up, and they spread around me. Yeah. And I'm up, and I'm up. I'm like, no one's taking me down again.
You're thinking round robin.
That's right.
Number 3.
I'm flipping around. Yeah, like Chuck Norris, right? Like, so they're like, no, you did good. It's like, never let guard down. Never let your guard down. And they're like, no, you did. They're like, all right, next phase, you have to go down this path until you get to the next stopping point, and it's through this elephant grass. It's like 8 feet tall. And so I'm going through this path. You can't see anything. I'm just like, what's that? Because I'm all
guard is up.
Guard's up. I'm like 10 minutes down this thing, like I'm a ninja, and nothing comes against me. And then we get to the next station. The next station is pretty anticlimactic. It's like some quick fires or something.
Right.
And I'm laying there waiting my turn, and these 2 guys are sitting behind me, and they're like, one guy's like, who's this idiot? He's like, I don't know. He's a fucking retard. He doesn't speak Spanish. And I was like, hey, motherfucker. As I turned around, I was like, hey, motherfucker, do you speak English? He's like, no. I was like, well, I speak a little Spanish, huh? He's like, yeah. I was like, so who's a fucking retard? Now, they had auxiliaries. which were kids. And the crane guy was also one of these guys.
Okay.
They're like soldiers that are tasked to help the instructors in different. They'll pick up stuff, they'll set things up and things like that.
Kind of like the Op 4 in Ranger School.
Pretty much, kind of like that. And most of them are conscripts, so they're just there for 2 years, and they got a lucky job where they get to boss people around because they're above the students but under the instructors, right?
Right.
But if you made friends with them, so when you did ranges, after you shot your 8 rounds or whatever, you had to collect the brass, and if you didn't get 8 pieces of brass, you stayed out there all night till you found it. Now, if you made friends with these guys, then they would collect. They had an extra brass, and they would they're like, "Here you go, buddy." So that was my first special forces. Win the hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Hey, you want some of my bread? Want me? I'll get you a Coke. The weird thing is, so they had you're not supposed to eat anything they don't feed you, right? And they fed you crap. Like it's like a little tortilla for breakfast with a sausage on it, and just some rice. I had so much rice I couldn't eat rice for like a year after I got out of there.
Wow.
And actually, I reached the limit like a month out where when they put rice in front of me, I was like, no. Well, you have to eat. I was like, not eating the rice. And my buddy's like, I'll eat it. So he's like fat Lancero, and I'm like, I'm losing weight. When I got out of this school, I weighed 120 pounds.
Holy
oh my gosh!
shit.
65 pounds.
I got sick about 3 weeks out, 2 or 3 weeks out. I got really sick. I got a bug.
Okay.
They called it schistosomiasis. It was like snails that came in through some water into my bloodstream somehow, and I was shitting and vomiting and had really bad burps and stuff like that. And I just started after about the 2 weeks out, I was getting really bad.
Yeah.
In fact, I was like number 2 runner in the beginning. At the end, I was like the second to last.
Wow.
The only reason I was the second to last is because the last guy, there was a truck following the last guy, and there was an instructor sitting on the hood, and he was kicking the ass of the last guy.
Wow.
And so I stayed ahead of him.
Wow.
I was like, I'm not falling behind. No freaking dude's kicking my ass as I'm running. I'm not doing that. So
what happened to the 2 guys behind you?
The
2 kids that were talking smack to you.
Oh, I just yelled at them.
Oh, okay.
And that was it. So it was very anticlimactic. Like I said, the last piece after everything.
So
else
that was it. After that, you graduated?
That was like halfway through. I had to do jungle phrase. Like I was still pretty fit at this time.
So then you're in the jungle doing patrols.
This is where we're walking up mud mountains and down mountains, and we're actually living. And you have to live in hammocks. You set your hammocks every night. Put your poncho over the hammock, and they cook food. You have to carry a big black pot around, and everyone carries it a day. You have to carry all your food. In fact, before you leave, they issue all the food. They say, okay, they divide it up by squad. Every squad carries a pot and all their food, and they carry bags of rice, bags of pasta.
So this isn't MRE type. This isn't military.
They have
type
Colombian
food.
MREs, but at this time the Colombian MREs didn't last very long, and they kind of sucked. They were pretty much all sugar.
Okay.
And it was one for each day.
Yeah.
And they had one main meal, and then they had like a breakfast cereal, like Fruity Pebbles or some just sugar stuff, and then I don't even know what the dinner was supposed to be, but it's supposed to be one per day.
Yeah.
And so when they did the inspection, of course, I brought my own MREs. And they didn't say I couldn't bring my own MREs, but I did hide them to say just in case. And so they did the layout, and they told us what to pack, and then they did a layout, and I was just like, I'm just going to put the MREs under the poncho so when the layout comes around.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the wind's like, whoosh, and I'm like, what's this? I was like, looks like MREs. He's like, are you hiding those from us? I was like, oh, no. You don't know?
No.
The U.S. MREs are really sensitive to the sun, so I was hiding them from the sun so they wouldn't spoil.
That's
like,
funny.
Well, you're not supposed to have these. It's like, well, you said MREs. It's like Colombian MREs. It's like, it didn't say Colombian MREs. It said MREs. And they're like, well, we're going to have to take these. So then they ate all my MREs in front of me. Of course. So, so we carried cans of tuna, cans of sardines, like all the good shit, right?
Yeah.
And I was actually platoon sergeant at the time when we divided everything up. And so I was like, I'm just going to carry the pasta because there's like tons of bags of rice. There's just this one thing of pasta. So the day we have pasta, I don't carry anything else, and that'll be great.
Yeah.
Of course, as soon as we left, I was no longer platoon sergeant, and I was never put in charge again. So why would anyone want to eat pasta if they're not fucking carrying pasta?
Yeah.
I hadn't figured this whole thing out. So I carried the pasta the whole way. And then whatever you don't eat at the end, you have to give to the villagers. So I carried it for like 2 or 3 weeks through the jungle.
Yeah.
And I would just I take one of the long things out and I just gnaw on it. Like, but it was horrible. So yeah, 3 more weeks through it, I got sick. I broke my thumb. One guy had a broken rib almost the whole time. There's a lot of, I mean, I could talk about Lancero School for your whole podcast, man. There's survival school, the snake wrestling, electric eel wrestling.
Hold on. Electric eel wrestling?
I mean, it's just all kinds of stupid stuff.
Is
it's
it
like
real
a lot
electric
of,
eel?
Yeah. It's like machismo stuff.
Wow.
I wouldn't say wrestling. I'd say electric eel fucking with you. So there's a barrel, and I'm walking to sit in the bleachers for a survival class, and they're like, "Come here, hey gringo, come here." They always like to fuck with me. Yeah. And they're like, "Come here," and I'm like, "What now? What could possibly come good from this?" And they're like, "Hey, stick your hands in there and grab that." That doesn't look very healthy. I'm like, "Do what we say."
Yeah, you're not going to like it.
So I reach in and I gingerly grab the eel, and I've raised it above the water. I don't know anything about eels. Like, do they only shock you when they're in water? Do they shock you when they're pissed? Or, I'm not sure. They live if they can't breathe, do they breathe water? If they can't breathe, do they get pissed? I don't know. But I'm just playing it by ear right now. And they're not very happy because they thought that I was going to get shit shocked out of me. And so like, jump up and down. So I gingerly jump up and down. He shocks the shit out of me. I go flying backwards. He's dropping back in the water. Everyone has a good laugh. It's super funny. Yeah. And I get in the bleachers.
Wow.
Yeah.
How bad's the shock? Is it like a taser? Or is it like
I mean, taser sucks, right? Where you're stuck where you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You got Tourette's till they turn it off, right? Yeah. So this is just a one wham.
Okay.
Yeah. So
like a light socket.
So what was the snake wrestling?
So we had a snake class just like you do in Ranger School, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, this is a snake, blah, blah, blah. Well, this snake class ends with them taking a snake and throwing it into this, I don't know, 2 or 3 meter by 2 or 3 meter pit that's waist deep. And before they throw it in there, they take the burlap pad that the snake was in and they go bam, 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 because apparently snakes like that.
Yeah, it makes them happy.
Yeah, when you smack them against the ground. So then they release the snake, the happy snake, into the pit. Yeah. And he's like, and then they tell people to get in the snake pit. And I get most of the classes were right out of the Ranger handbook or right out of Ranger School. Okay. So we would have patrolling classes. Yeah. And it would be in Spanish. So I wouldn't understand it, but I would know it. Right. So they'd wake me up and say, "Oh, you're sleeping. Tie a bowline and half hitch." And I'm like, I was like, "Oh, damn, we didn't get him." Yeah. How many people can ride in a Black Hawk? 8. Like, oh shit, he knows everything. Yeah. Now they're like, "Hey, gringo, come here, get in the snake pit." We're like, wake up. And so I get in the snake pit on the other side, and the snake's not happy, and I'm not happy. And they're like, "Catch the snake." And I was awake for part of the beginning of the course where the guy trapped the snake with the forked stick. Yeah. And I was like, "Do I get a forked stick?" And they're like, "No, do it the Lancero way with your hands." And I'm like, okay.
You missed that part.
Yeah. So I took my hat off and I used that as a decoy for the snakes because I don't know if they fall for decoys, but I figured what the hell. Yeah. So I went over there. He went for my hat. I went for his neck. I got his neck. I got it. I got the snake. Like luck. And then like kiss. All right. They're like, "Oh, dang it. Kiss Margarita." So kiss Margarita. I was like, "All right, you can go." And I threw Margarita away and I walked away. There was like really great music in the background, I'm sure. And then they call another guy, Colombian, down there to do it. And they're like, "Catch the snake." And he tries the same thing, but the snake learns. So instead of going for the cap, he goes for the guy's arm, gets the guy's arm. Now, not poisonous, probably. I mean, I assume, I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Well, did his arm blow up?
No. They took him away, and he came back a couple of days later. Okay. But he was running around with a snake attached to him for a while. It's kind of funny. Could have been me. Yeah. But so snakes learn. Now we know snakes learn. So snake wrestling. There was that. That's when I got sick. When we started eating like all this stuff. They had everything from the jungle. They had turtles and snakes and animals, pigs and everything, and we had to slaughter them and cook them, and that's probably where I got sick, to tell you the truth.
That makes sense.
That's part of it. And then I also bathed in a river and cut myself foot, and that's the other part. So somewhere in that mangle of abuse to my body and infection and bacteria and viruses and stuff.
You just ended up with snails in your blood.
10 weeks of this would seem like an eternity.
It was bad. In fact, one of the guys that went with me lost so much weight. When we went out, we went to the hospital, a civilian hospital, and got a checkup, a Colombian civilian hospital. And he's like, what's going on? He's like, I went to this course and I lost like 60 pounds. Like, you got AIDS. And they put him in the AIDS ward. And we had to go get like the general to like talk to the doctors. Like, no, he's just a weak American. Put him in the other side. But I went back with this sickness. I remember getting in the plane and I just had the worst burps. Like, they were long and they would stink so bad. And I was in the very front seat of second class, so like a wall in front of me. And the poor lady next to me had like, a vegetarian meal. She's like super healthy.
Oh man.
And she went to the bathroom and I was just like, "Whoa." And she comes back and she's like, she's got the magazine out and the guys behind me, like 3 or 4 seats, the Americans, because they've been feeling it the whole week. They're like, God damn it, Randy, cut that out. I just like, and then,
wow.
So you remember, I only went to my team for one day, right? Before I got out.
Well, we got to go back. We got to go back just for a second. Graduation of that?
Okay. Yeah. So graduation, good call. So the second to last day, you have to jump off this 8-floor cliff into a river, like 8 floors up, and throughout the course.
Now you're tired as shit. Have the shits at this point.
Well, I have the shits, but we've had a couple days back, but there's not really rest days. They're like you have to clean the barracks like every freaking day, like shine the wax on, wax off, like really wax on, wax off. You've seen the movie. I'm like, what the fuck? So we got to clean everything, and so there's busy work, and then there's practice for the graduation ceremony and stuff like that, and then we have to jump off this cliff. If you don't jump off the cliff, you don't graduate. And the whole course, people are planning their speech when they jump off the cliff. I dedicate this cliff to my lovely wife and my father and my dog Toto and the country of Colombia and the school of Lanceros and all this stuff, right? And so they would get up on like a boulder in the jungle when we had some free time. And they practice their speech and then they jump off and go Lancero, and they jump like whatever, half a foot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
That's intense.
And they're like, they're trying to explain this cliff to me, and we saw the cliff because we had to do. What is it when you go down a line? Zip line.
Zip line.
Yeah, zip line. You have to drop off before you run into the cliff, and otherwise, if you're afraid to let go, you smash into the wall. Some people do, and so we'd seen the cliff a couple times, and we had to do small jumps. Every phase, you had to jump off like, okay, we're going to do 2 floors. Now we're going to do 3 floors, and then they skip from like 4 to 8 floors. The 8 floors. You've practiced. Now combat speed. And so these guys are practicing this whole time. And they're like, what the fuck are you guys doing? It's like, well, aren't you scared? I was like, scared of what? It's like jumping off the cliff. I was like, in the water? Has anyone ever died? And they're like, no. I was like, then no. I'm just going to jump off the cliff.
Yeah.
And they're like, and so anyway, so we get to the cliff. I wish you were doing a video on this one because this is better acted out. But so we get to the cliff and they're telling people, hey, all right, get ready. You're going to go over there. And they stand there, and the guy across the river's like, Lancero Rodriguez, what do you dedicate this jump to? And then he does his speech. I dedicate it to my wife and my family and my father, who was also Lancero before me, and the great country of Colombia and the school of Lanceros. And eventually he's like shortening everything. He's like, okay, jump, salto. And he's like, Lancero. And so some of them are great, and they run off and they jump, right? But if you don't clear the cliff, like if you hesitate and you like just go fall, you like hit the cliff on the way down. You have to like get some forward motion. Yeah. And this guy's like, he's like running up, and he's like, he gets to the edge, and he's like, okay, I'm going to try it again. So he does his speech, and he runs up, and he's like, and they're like, God damn it, jump! And so he runs up and he jumps, and he like stops, and he just tilts over it and it bounces off the cliff into the water. And you're just like, what the hell are you guys doing, man? And so every like third or fourth guy would do something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And so I get up there. And I'm just pretty much fed up with everything at this point. Yeah. And the guy's like, what do you dedicate this jump to? It's like, I dedicate this jump to the United States of America. And then if you have some kind of, you're hesitant or you're shy or something, they'll egg you on. They're like, and what else? And so you have to think of something else. So some people just say, I dedicate it to Colombia. And what else? And they let you say it 4 or 5 times. And so they said, and what else? I was like, and that's it. Nada. And the guy shakes his head. He's like, jump. And I jump off and I go, Ranger! And I hit the water. And I think they were fed up with me at this point too. Yeah. And so then I get to we still don't know who's graduating yet. We have to stand in line and go before the council of instructors, like 50 instructors that are involved in every phase and everything, right? They're all in there and they're in this auditorium and you have to one by one walk in and stand behind the podium and they tell you if you pass or not. And it's in alphabetical order, so I'm like last. And so I'm standing there and this Colombian lieutenant walks up and starts yammering to me in very fast Spanish. Yeah. And he's like, and I'm like, hey, you have to speak slower. He's like, you don't speak Spanish? I was like, I speak some Spanish, but you have to speak slower. He's like, I speak English. I was like, oh, that's great. Maybe we should converse in English. And he's like, I just completed your Ranger School. I was like, Lieutenant, that's a great accomplishment. Ranger School is very difficult. It's a great leadership school. I'm sure you learned a lot. That's awesome. And he's like, well, thank you. I don't think anybody should go to Lancero School if they don't speak Spanish. He's like, and I agree with you. I think Spanish makes this school much better, a much better experience. Yeah, I think that's a good. You should propose that. That's good. He's like, well, what do you know what's happening now? I was like, I have no idea. I'm standing in the slide. He's like, you're going to go up into the podium, and they're going to tell you whether you pass or not. Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Well, all right, cool. Yeah. And he's like, so, well, let me give you a hand. Let me help you out. I was like, great. So, if they tell you to stand in front of the podium, that means you pass. Yeah. If they tell you to stand behind the podium, that means you didn't pass. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's very helpful. Thanks very much. So I go in there and they tell me to stand behind the podium. Yeah. And then they yammer on and I have no idea what they're saying. And they wait for me to react. And I'm just like, doo-doo-doo. What else would you like me to do? Yeah. And they're like, and this guy in the back goes, you pass. And I was like, oh, yay, thank you. And he's like, and then they're like, go run a lap and do your 50 push-ups for the Lancero in the sky. And I was like, yeah, roger that. So I go out there. And then the next part is the graduation where you get the distintivo. Have you ever seen a Lancero? No. I should mail, give me your address. I'll mail you when I have one at home. Okay. And you can probably pull one up on Google too, but it's probably cooler to have one.
Well, I appreciate that.
So they have this distintivo and they put it in the grog and of whatever's in the grog, and you have to drink it to get it out. And so we're standing there and getting ready to go in, and the lieutenant comes over. He's like, were you scared when you got behind the podium? And I was like, you know what? I couldn't give a shit if I passed this course. He's like, what do you mean? Lancero is the most famous course in the world. It's like, I'd say that Rangers are probably the most famous course in the world. I'd never heard of Lancero course before I got here. I mean, like 3 months before I got here, they mentioned it, and then I came here. But I'm pretty sure it's not the most famous course in the world. He's like, this is a very prestigious course. When you go back, you'll have many accolades. I was like, I'm pretty sure people will think I'm dumber from coming here. And they will give me no accolades. They might actually deny me promotion. He's like, no, that's not true. This is a very, very distinguished course. I was like, no, it's a stupid course, and you should be ashamed. And that's how I graduated.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Did you get any accolades for going to this course?
Yeah, so I was going to say, now let's fast forward back because you land back and you're on the B team and you get back into the room.
Yeah, now you weigh 135 pounds and you suck at PT.
So all I do is I walk into my team room when I get back, and everyone's like, who's that guy? I was like, I don't know. Why is he here? And I sit down at my desk, and they're like, what are we going to do? Who is he? And I'm like, and I'm just putting my stuff on my backpack, and some guy comes up, can we help you? Yeah. It's like, no, I'm good. And they're like, why are you? I think you're in the wrong room. I was like, is this 772? And he's like, yeah. I was like, I'm in the right room. I'm your Bravo. He's like, oh, you're that guy. And they're like, oh, we didn't know what happened to you. You've been gone too long. Some of them are new. Some of them, who is he? He went to Lancero School, never came back. But I still had the burps, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like talking to him, and I was like, and everyone like evacuated from the room, like, oh no. And I still was sick, and they were supposed to go to JRTC the next week.
Yeah.
And so the new team sergeant comes up. He's like, hey, you need to pack this. You need to go that. And I was like, yeah, I think I need to go see a doctor. He's like, why? What's wrong with you? I was like,
look at me.
Look at me. And he's like, well, go to sick call. I was like, so I went to sick call. They couldn't figure it out. They're going to do some tests. They said, come back.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I'm supposed to go to JRTC next week. He's like, you're not going anywhere, dude.
Yeah.
So I go back and I tell my team sergeant, like, hey, the doctor said I can't go anywhere. He's like, you fucking pussy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like my second day on the team. I was like,
Yeah.
all right. The funny thing is, the funny thing for me, and at the moment, so Lancero taught me that nothing ever was going to be as bad as that.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, even combat, because I was just like, I had no control over anything. Yeah. And I didn't know what was going on. And even in combat, I know what's going on and I have control over a lot. And so when I went after that, I had a whole new perspective. Yeah. I mean, I kind of did what I wanted to come in the Army. I probably could have quit right then and been fulfilled. You know, I tested myself.
Passed the
That's
test
right.
for sure.
And so, the white guy actually quit. The other white guy, the American, he quit. And he tried to go back a couple times because it hurt him. He was scuba qualified. He was a Ranger battalion guy, Ranger tabbed. He went to Desert Storm. He was at the top of his game, and he couldn't put up with the bullshit. Okay. And one time, some guy, because he was just an asshole too to the Colombians, and one guy came up to him and started yelling at him, and he asked one of the Americans what he said. He said he's going to fucking kill you. And the guy's like, you're going to kill me? And they're like, la, 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 la. And he had his gun. It wasn't loaded, but he had his gun. It's like, la, 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 la. But he was pointing it at him. Yeah. And so the American, who was a 6'3" big guy, grabbed the gun away from him, like out of his hands, and smacked him over the head with it, right?
Holy shit.
And then he sat down and he thought he was going to get thrown out. Yeah. But that's not a throw out offense in Lancero School. They just come over. It's like, stop hitting your fellow students with your own rifles. You know? And the guy's like crying, like, ah. That is funny. And this is the guy that beat the shit out of the guy. Right. He just had a very poor attitude for all the things. And as a result, people didn't treat him well and he didn't treat them well. And it was kind of mutual, right? So he thought he was going to get thrown out. So he kind of given up at that point. And then he didn't get thrown out. And they were like, no, why would we throw you out? Wow. And then we got infilled to the mountains, and he was a squad leader, and he had set up his squad. Perfect. Ranger school. Like, hey, this is your right limit, left limit, camouflage, everything. Next morning, the instructors come by, and his guys had just fucking eaten right in their spot, and trashes everywhere. Oh, and they fucking bitched him out, right? Yeah. And then when the instructor went away, he just beat the fuck out of them with their helmets. He took their helmets like, motherfucker, I told you. and then he said, I fucking quit. And he put his backpack on. He walked off into the jungle.
No way.
Yeah. And so we watched him, and we're like, we should probably tell somebody. And so we told the instructors freaked out. Yeah. And they grabbed the Colombian guy who was like kind of friends with everybody because he was Colombian American. He was the golden child, and a bunch of them, they went looking for him. And as they were walking out of the perimeter, he walked back in because he realized he was lost. It was probably stupid to walk out. Right. And they said, hey, he's like, I quit. And they're like, okay, we're going to call a truck. Yeah. So this is the difference between Ranger School and Lancero School. You call a truck, it comes in 6 hours. You want to get a medevac, you get bit by a snake, 6 hours. Yeah. You get bit by electric eel, 6 hours. Whatever. So that's always in the back of an American's mind. Yeah. Like if anything happens to me, it's 6 hours on a truck. Yeah. And then I have to get on the truck. It's got to take me out. So he's sitting over there, and then we had another guy that just hated him because of his attitude. And when he heard that he walked out, he just lost it, and he stormed down the middle of the patrol bases on a hill. And he stormed down the hill. And he's checking off his LC. They were both big guys, 6'4" guys, had a lot of experience, ex-Rangers, SF, and He's like, you motherfucker. I tackled him. And then it's like UFC before UFC.
Yeah.
And it was like UFC and like all the old seer stuff, like, oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, all that, all that.
Finger hooks.
All the finger hooks.
Yeah.
But everything you learned in seer school that you could do when you're almost dead from exhaustion, they were doing. And finally, the white guy chokes out the other guy. The bad guy wins, right?
Yeah.
Because because the instructor's like, the other Americans were like, hey, should we stop him? And the instructor's like, let's see how this plays out. and then of course the American that didn't quit gets choked out, and they're like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
And so he's like, and then the other guy's all breathing hard. And he backs up. The other guy wakes up. He's like, you mother, tackle again, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then she's choked out again. This is before choking was a thing. It must have been by accident because no one knew how to do that back then. And then he gets choked out again, and the instructor's like, damn it, okay, that's over. It's over. We're gonna separate him for good now. And then he went home. And for the rest of his career, he tried to go back to Lancero School because he wanted to redeem himself.
Yeah.
He couldn't. The one would let him go. He didn't embarrass his country. I mean, the instructor, American instructor, sat down and was like, you are representing the United States 7th Special Forces Group, and if you quit, you're embarrassing us. You can't quit. And he's like, I quit. Fuck it. And so he quit. And so he never was allowed to go back. It hit his brain so bad.
Yeah.
And he retired as an E7. He never got promoted. I don't think he was E7 when he got there, but he never got promoted past E7. In fact, I eventually passed him and was in charge of him on a B team one day. And he was just a mess. And he refused to retire because he lost his security clearance he used to be an instructor at scuba school. Mm-hmm. He lost his security clearance for something. Maybe it wasn't bullshit. Who knows? And he was trying to get it back, but they wouldn't let him re-enlist.
Right.
He had 20 some years, but they wouldn't let him stay in. And if he didn't have a security clearance in SF, they were going to move him to a conventional 8-second or something. He's like, fuck you guys. So he didn't even retire.
Wow.
He just ETS'd from the Army with 20 years in.
Oh my gosh.
Really? I didn't know that was an option.
I didn't know it was an option either, but so I'm in Afghanistan like 10 years later, and he's in my chow hall in JBAD. And I'm like, what the fuck you doing, Bri?
Yeah.
How did you get here? He's like, oh, I work for Dynacorp. I'm one of their medics. And I was like, oh, okay. Why are you on my fire base? How'd you get in here? It's like, your guys let me in. It's like, well, I'll have to fix that. But anyway, but I should know at least, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, so what's going on? And he's like, nothing. And so he leaves. He made a bunch of money with Dynacorp. Yeah. And then, we're jumping way ahead now, but one of my jobs in the last 10 years was I worked in the embassy in Colombia.
Okay.
As the senior non-commissioned officer for the Mill Group commander and also the security guy. And the guy there, he found out I was Lancero. This goes into, did this benefit me? It benefits me like 15 years down the line. Before that, everyone just made fun of me, like Lancero idiot. And that became my kind of thing. Every time something was stupid in the Army, I was like, that sounds very.
Did you
Lancero.
wear the scroll?
No, I could only wear the badge when we went to Colombia.
Okay.
So they would know I was a Lancero because it gave me a lot of pull in Colombia.
Sure.
Like, I went through your course.
Yeah.
I understand your course. I understand your mission. Well, that was what it came down to. I had to mentor my guys. Like, hey, when you tell them to double tap, don't tell them to double tap. I was like, well, they got to learn our way. I was like, no, it's against their law. So you don't teach them to double tap. If they're commanders and people in charge of them tell them to do that, that's something different. But we can't teach them that. And it's like, well, that's our way. I was like, stop it. It's not legal, and you don't want to. You're going to get them in trouble. Americans are going to get us in trouble too. Americans taught us. Let's not do that. And there's just all their tactics. Hey, this is the way they do stuff, and we need to either change their tactics or, better yet, take their tactics and tweak them a little bit so they make sense tactically and they're still using their tactics or whatever. So that's where they came in handy later on. But anyway, so this guy, I'm talking to the Army mission chief, and he's like, Lancero, there was this. So I send out of Afghanistan where I see this guy. I got a brand new 18 X-ray. He's a Charlie, but he's an X-ray when he came in, and he became a Charlie.
Yeah.
Great kid. And he was like my star X-ray, just super motivated, super smart. He used to be a ice skating champion.
Wow.
Doubles. Yeah, that's what I said.
Wow.
When I was interviewing him for.
But I bet he was fit as fuck.
He was fit as fuck. He became a CrossFit star.
Yeah.
He did. And he ended up owning a gym for a while too in Colombia, actually.
Wow.
But I was like, so hey, tell me about yourself. He's like, yeah, I won the gold in doubles. I was like Blades of Glory, kind of. What are we talking about here? So, but anyway, so he was a great guy, and he said his promotion. His E6 promotion board was there. The team did the promotion board. They said, "Hey, we're going to delegate it down to you. So you're going to EA. You're going to be the president of the board. Blah blah blah." So we had a really hard board, like useful shit, not the normal shit. We did the normal shit because we were required to, but it was like, "Hey, can you drink your own urine when you're in a survival situation?" Right. And he's like, "Yes." I was like, "Well, there's a bottle of urine under your desk, under your chair right now." Yeah. He's like, "This." I don't think this is a survival situation. But, useful stuff like that. Yeah. And useful stuff. So he goes. I was like, well, what does your next 5 years look for you? He's like, I want to be just like you, Sergeant. I was like, you want to go to Lancero School? He's like, he didn't know what the fuck Lancero School. Yeah. He's like, absolutely. I was like, great. I'm going to put you on the list. He's like, good. I want to go. And so he gets out of Afghanistan. Yeah. And a month later, he's in Lancero School.
Oh my God!
And I went down to his graduation, and he's like, "I hate you." But this guy, this really emaciated guy, because this guy's like 45, 48.
Oh, holy shit!
He runs out of the formation. He's like, Randy, and it was this guy, the guy that quit, the quitter. Yeah. And I was like, holy fuck, Brian, how did you? He's like, yeah, I finally got it. And we didn't get I know, you got so many questions, right? So many questions.
So many questions.
So I didn't get to talk to him anymore after that. And it was always a question, right? So after that mission, because I actually had a mission in Colombia then, and then I went and worked in the embassy for 4 years. And while I was there, the Army mission chief's like, last year, this guy, this specialist from the National Guard.
What?
He
20 years.
He joined the National Guard.
Yeah.
Because he never retired.
Oh shit.
And he
probably was out so long.
He didn't show his records. They had him as a specialist.
Oh man.
And he wrote an email to the embassy and said, "Hey, I want to go to Lancero School. I know they have a class in September. Can I go? And I have do you need some stuff for my?" They'll tell you I'm fit and everything. And so they said, yeah. And so he paid his own way with his Dynacorp money because his unit wasn't going to pay.
Holy shit.
Paid his own way and went when he was like, whatever, 45, 46, 48.
And he made it.
And he made it.
That's the nuttiest thing I've ever heard of anybody doing on purpose.
Even nuttier than putting sand in your shorts and trying to prepare for buds?
Oh, yeah, that was an hilarious one. But holy cow. Okay. So it wasn't that this guy...
I have so many questions.
Yeah, it wasn't that he got busted down to E4 because he stayed out so long, and so he was an E7. And he basically faked his way in for the sole purpose of getting back down there.
There you go.
Holy cow. That's creative.
I don't know. I don't.
Obviously, you're right. It jacked with his head. Had to have jacked with his head so bad.
I don't know. It's a chicken and an egg thing, right? Like, did Lancero School mess him up, or was he on the verge before?
No, the fact that it
jacked him up so bad that he had to go. He didn't want to end his life being a quitter, basically. It messed him up. Yeah. So bad that he would lie, cheat, steal, do whatever was necessary to get back down there.
Who wants to be a specialist in the National Guard after you've had a career in SF?
Well, he probably got out after that. He'd done what he needed.
Yeah, I imagine he did.
That's amazing. I'm kind of speechless.
Didn't show up for a drill, asked to go ahead and
paid his own way to Lancero School.
So many questions.
Did he have like professional repercussions for quitting that school, or did it affect him?
I don't know if there. I don't know. So he was always a little off kilter,
right?
And so, I mean, there's so I'm an E8 in charge of the B team, and he's under me now. Weird.
Right.
I was like, hey, Bri, I want you to do this because you work for me now.
Yeah.
And one of the things is we were burning manuals, like old manuals that we had, right? And this is a senior E7 that's been in group for he's been a Ranger. He's been in group for at least 15 years, right? And he failed Lancero School, so this may be why this happened. But he's supposed to be burning the manuals in a 55-gallon drum down outside or something, right?
Right.
Use your common sense. He comes running in and comes running by my B team door. I'm like, what the fuck? And then he comes running back with a fire extinguisher. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Well, he did it too close to the dumpster. Yeah. And the wind picked up and caught the dumpster on fire, and then that dumpster too. And so I walk outside, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, and I was like, fucking someone call the fucking fire department. And I walk over, and was like, what the fuck, dude? He's like, and then of course the command sergeant major of the battalion walks out and is like, what's going on, guys?
Yeah. Why are you burning the dumpsters?
I got this, sergeant major. Fire people are all on their way. I mean, what are we gonna do?
Oh my gosh!
He's like, I need to talk to you after this. I was like, roger that.
So you never got a chance though to wear Lancero.
So they don't have a. They don't have a tab.
Why have I seen photos then of some guys that wearing like a Tower of Power and it's on there?
But American wearing a Tower of Power with a Lancero badge. Where are you going to put it? It's not authorized. The Distintivo is only authorized with your Class A's.
It's good that you said that because there are guys that post the photos and everybody's like, "What is that?" and everything. So
that's the same as the sniper tab.
But the same thing. But if they're in Colombia, if they're going to an event with Colombians, you can get authorization. I mean, I don't know how legal it is,
but they don't have one.
I don't think they have a tab. I think they have some insignia with the tab, but I don't feel like they wear it. But I could be wrong.
I'm gonna Google that.
But it's only the Distintivo that we're allowed to walk. Okay. I have a document that says allows me to wear it with my ASUs or my Class A's back.
Yeah, right. The same as like a unit citation.
It goes foreign jump wings. The same thing as foreign jump wings.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
So, all right. So what happens after you go back?
So I go back and I mean, my team treats me like shit because I miss JRTC and JRTC sucks. I never went to JRTC my whole career. I always missed it.
Didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I know. So they went there and did it. And before they left, I said, I always knew that I would need a college education before I got out. So I said, hey, I went to my team leader and I said, hey, I'd like to take some college while you guys are away to JRTC. I didn't think it was a bad thing. I was dying. Yeah. And he signed off on it, right?
Right.
So I started going to college and I was getting better. And when they came back, I was better. And they're like, you faker. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then, and because I didn't go to JRTC and I was a faker, my first team experience, those 2 years, was horrible. Yeah. Horrible leadership. Especially in the team sergeant arena, it was just not my favorite time ever. But and my team didn't talk to me for a year.
Whoa!
Wow!
I'll tell you why in a minute. Why they said it. They weren't very mature, but other than that, I'll tell you why they didn't talk to me. But so basically, I went around my day with no communication except for my team sergeant, maybe my team leader. Right. But the rest of the team was kind of to give me the cold shoulder for a lot of it. And what was the question? I'm sorry.
We're talking about your team wouldn't speak to you.
Oh yeah. Well, so they didn't speak to me, and then we went to Fort Pickett, and they went out drinking, and I was the designated driver for the van.
Right.
And they're like, "You're pretty cool." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" It's like, "Well, you went to Lancero School and SEER School. I mean, you shouldn't go to that right when you get to group." I was like, so you're holding it against me that I went to the two shittiest schools in the fucking world, and I volunteered to go to them, which you guys could volunteer to go, and you can volunteer to go to SEER School. None of you guys had. This is before SEER School was a requirement. It's like any of you guys can volunteer to go to SEER School, just like I did. Yeah. He's like, well, but we got stuff to do, and I was like, and I'm sorry, none of you qualify for Ranger School because you have to have a Ranger tab and a 2+2+ in Spanish, and none of you have both of those. Right. So why are you holding that against me? Would you rather no one go? It's like, well, yeah, you shouldn't go because you're a new guy. You need to do your time. Yeah. I was like, I did my time in the Rangers. So why would you going to hold that against me? And they're like, well, you need to do your time in group. I was like, that's silly. And the fact that you guys are immature and silly like that makes you silly.
Yeah. So you had to have 2+2+2 for Lancero School in Spanish, and you had to be Ranger qualified to go to Lancero School.
Right.
Okay.
That was the unofficial requirement.
Oh, okay. I mean, so you could put in for it, but you're probably not going to get it if you don't have those two criteria.
Other people you'd be accepted. I mean, only so many people could go a year, and so they had to prioritize it. We never had enough. I mean, I think there was like 10 or 12 that went 1 year, but I don't know what the limit was. The limit was there probably wasn't a limit. There probably was just like, do we want to send 12 Americans down there to get their asses beat? I don't know.
Yeah. Do we need 12 guys coming back, 40 pounds underweight, parasites and shit?
Does anybody outside of 7th go down?
As a matter of fact, there's it's a funny story. So after my 2 years in my unhappy team time, I said, I'm better than this team. I'm going to apply for Best Ranger, and I'm also going to apply to go back to the medic course. And I came back from one deployment, and I had 2 letters of acceptance, one to go to the Ranger Challenge and one to go to the medic course, and they both started on the same day.
Oh, shoot.
So I was like...
Of course you went for Best Ranger.
No, I went to the medic course, and I let my team, I had a partner, but we weren't allowed to train together because we were deployed. But we were training, and I told my partner I was going to go to the medic course.
Man.
I know I let him down. But I went to the medic course, and while I was in the medic course in San Antonio at Fort Sam Houston, I was running a 5K around the base with my Lancero shirt on, because why not?
Yeah.
And this guy jogs up next to me. He's like, hey, I went to Lancero School. And he was just a guy in Southcom that had heard about it and volunteered to go. And they authorized him to go, and he went, and he passed.
Wow.
Okay.
Just regular Army guy.
Regular Army guy.
Wow.
He was an officer, so maybe better than a regular Army guy.
Yeah, much better.
Well,
that's why he knew how to do like the paperwork and stuff.
Well, also I think when you compare an officer with a new enlisted person, like the guy who quit, right? When the guy who quit wasn't new or anything, but I think the impact of what you're doing, as far as embarrassing the country, embarrassing 7th Group, embarrassing Southcom,
right?
I think as an officer you understand that better than maybe
you
maybe. But this guy was I would say a new guy like me maybe wouldn't have understood it as much as the guy that quit, because he was 10 years in the Army and he'd been around, so it was kind of weird.
Yeah, 10 years in the Army, you should know. You're in a foreign school.
Yeah,
you're special operations. You can't just up and quit. That's gonna have a ripple effect.
Yeah. So anyway,
you'd already made it through scuba, Ranger, been a Ranger battalion.
Well, it wasn't the hardship of the school itself, like that was an internal failure, or he deselected himself.
Yeah, he deselected himself, and he had hit people over the head with their own rifles.
Yeah, and their helmets. Yeah,
yeah. So this is a well-adjusted individual to begin with.
It's probably why a lot of Rangers didn't pass the Q course.
Well, there you go. No, I was 100%. Actually thinking that when you were describing them, going, then that makes a lot of sense now.
But. So then I apply to the medic course. I go to the medic course. I pass it. Now, I'll caveat that this was the last medic course in San Antonio, and it was the last medic course for 2 years before they would start the next one that was going to be started up in Fort Bragg.
Oh, wow.
So that may define how good of a medic I was to get past it. I was already tabbed, so I already had preferential treatment to an extent.
Right.
And they may have given me a couple buys that they wouldn't have given in a normal season, probably because they were told to, not necessarily because that they were favoring me. I don't think anyone favored me that wasn't told that, hey, we're going to be a little bit more lenient on these things because, or we're going to give them another try because we don't have any medics for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that in my defense because I never thought I was a really good medic. I was a medic. I did good things, but there are certain things that
pharmacology,
maybe. But I did pass everything this time.
Yeah.
And then I had a 3-month break because they switched from phase 13. If you guys are familiar.
Nope.
So there was phase 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And then phase 1 was patrolling, like mini Ranger School.
Okay.
Phase 2 was the MOS, and then phase 3 was Robin Sage.
Okay.
That was the original, right? When I came in, they said, you know what? It makes sense to do, since they're going to be in Robin, they're going to be out in Camp McCall. Let's just do phase 1 patrolling and then phase 3 right after it. So I called it phase 13.
Okay.
Because 1 + 3 is 4.
That makes sense.
So they would start with phase 2. So as soon as you passed SFAS, you go straight to your MOS phase, and then you would do phase 13. Well, what they found out was everyone got fat and happy in MOS phase, and they were like out of shape when they got to the. So then they kind of rearranged stuff again.
Yeah.
But so because they had just switched that, all of the non-tabbers that came to the course had to now go through. They switched it back. Had to now go to phase 1, patrolling. I think SEER school too, maybe, and a lot of other stuff. And so it was a 3-month break before we went to do phase 2 of the medical course.
Okay.
And I was like, what the fuck? So I went and drove. I drove to Walt Disney and ran a marathon without any training. That was very stupid. And I limped off. I think I was last. I really think I was last. I think they were closing it down when I got there. And like Tigger was there.
Yeah.
I'm seriously. There was a guy named that dressed like Tigger. Like
T.I. double gutter.
Yeah. Exactly. So and then I was driving up to Bragg, and there was an ice storm warning, and I knew if I got up there, I was just going to be on the slave block, you know.
Yeah.
And then so I went over to Charleston and went to the Air Force Base and said, hey, I want to take a MAC flight. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I want to take a MAC flight to Australia. And the E4 there said, okay, well, this is okay. So tomorrow you're going to take a flight to San Antonio. The next day, San Antonio to Travis in California. Then you got to wait 2 days, and the flight goes to Australia. Out of Travis, it goes through Honolulu or goes through Hawaii, overnight in Hawaii, 36 hours, and then you'll be in Australia by the end of the week.
Wow.
I was like, cool. So I did that. I went to Australia for 2 months.
On leave?
On leave with a MAC flight.
That's freaking awesome. Man.
And then I came back on a MAC.
No troubles getting back then?
I had a little bit of trouble getting back because the plane had some engine trouble, like twice in a row, and it only leaves twice a week. So I was getting close because I left 2 weeks early before my leave was over, and I was already getting down to the line. In fact, I was supposed to be at a wedding, but the first one, the engine broke. The second one was really weird, and I thought this could be a dream, it could be real. I remember the Air Force stewardess person, because I was asleep, and like I always am because I'm a Ranger, and anytime something vibrates near me, I'm sleeping.
Yes.
And so she came over and said, hey, well, we lost like 2 of our 4 engines. You need to get into crash position. I was like, I was asleep. So then I got into crash position, fell asleep again, and then we landed back in Australia because they went back, and then I left on the next plane. So, and as soon as I got to Travis, I just paid for a flight to Bragg because I didn't want to screw around anymore.
That's part of the challenge, at least back in the day. Everybody used to do MAC flights, but that was the challenge. Could you get to your destination, but worse yet, could you get back home?
Right. Yeah, so that's why I left early, and it worked out for me, but I still had to dish out a little bit of money, but not as much as getting to Australia. Australia's like a $4,000 ticket or something.
And you may be in someplace warm and tropical, but then you land in someplace freezing-ass cold before you have to, wait for the next plane.
We had stopped in New Zealand and Pongo, and then Hawaii, and then Travis. So that's a good trip if they're still letting people do it because of COVID. I don't know.
Probably not.
I've used it a couple times to go to Europe. I went to Rota, Spain, and back, and I went to Germany and Italy back and stuff.
Yeah.
You just got to have the time to wait around.
Yeah. All right. So made it all the way to Sergeant Major then?
I did eventually. I was on it. I never went to SWIC. I went to
really.
I really think that my record showed so much time in SWIC because I went to the medic course, failed out, went to the Bravo course, and then I went to the medic course again, when it was combined with ASOT. So I'd spent between the medic course and ASOT, I spent not ASOT, ANOC.
Yes.
I spent 2 years, two years plus in the Q course doing the MOS phase of. I think people just looked at it and thought I had SWIC time.
Wow.
But I was never tasked to go to SWIC, and I went. I'm
sure that's something you weren't bringing up either. Like, hey guys, I haven't gone.
No, and I never did staff. So 93, and then I got promoted to E8 in 2000, 3 or 4 or something like that. And then So from the time I got to SF 93 until 2007, when I got my job at a group, which was to go to Colombia, I deployed 6 to 8 months a year in either South America or Afghanistan. So I was gone over half a year every year.
Okay.
Sometimes 10 months.
Yeah.
Ever make the A, or were you just always on the B team?
What's that?
Always on the B team?
No.
People are going to listen to this and wonder. That's why I had to ask you. Because you never shared that.
No, as soon as after Lancero, I went to the team. They didn't recognize me. So I was on the team. I went to the medic course. I came back. They said, "Do you have any problem with your last team?" I was like, I guess not. And it was some new people in charge. Yeah. So it was a step up, I guess. And then had some great deployments, did the Colombian missions before 9/11, which was there was a lot of money down there doing that.
Okay.
And then I went to ASOT, the ASO course, which was not very popular then before 9/11, right?
Right.
So I went kind of like right after 9/11, I finally got a slot. Mm-hmm. And then they asked for the 20th group was doing rotation over in Afghanistan. So as soon as I got out of the course, they're like, hey, 20th group doesn't have any level 1s or level 2s.
Yeah.
They need help. Who wants to go? Well, we only have 2 level 3s in the battalion, and I'm one of them. And they're like, okay. So they asked me to volunteer, but I'm not sure it was an ask. But I was more than willing. No one knew it was going to last as long as it did.
So for those who are listening.
So you wanted to jump in and go.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody doesn't know what you're talking about. Conventional guy, Poe guy.
So
like myself.
Advanced Special Operations. It's a course. It's not a very combat course. It's more about it's kind of human intelligence course. And so they didn't have any human intelligence assets.
What's the levels? More of
it's the level of training. So so if you go to level 2, you've done a 3-week course. If you go to level 3, you've done a 2.5-month course.
I got you. Okay.
So we went over there. So I went over there to augment 20th Group, who, of course, didn't know me and I didn't know them. So when I show up and they're like, who are you? I was like, well, I thought someone told you I was coming. I'm here to help you with your human intelligence. It's like, we're doing fine. We don't need you. And there was a trust thing because, everyone was doing something maybe not correct in the beginning because no one knew what to really do, and no one wanted anyone to report someone that was doing something that wasn't sure what they were doing right or wrong. For lack of a better explanation. And so we had to work through our trust issues, but I stayed over there for about 6 months and came back and got promoted and took my team, argued that it was dumb if you didn't send me back to JBAD because I already knew all the human intelligence over there. I started it and I knew the people, I knew all the players, I knew the mayor, the governor, I knew everybody. So if you don't send me back there, you're stupid. And they all said, get out of my office. And then they sent me back to JBAD with my team. So that was great. Nice. So we went back to JBAD. We did that for 8 months. And then I went back one more time to do a specific human intelligence mission. And then I said, when I took a team over, I was walking in and one of my friends was leaving from his team time. I was like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to Colombia. I was like, to work? He's like, yeah, it's like a permanent, like a PCS thing. I was like, what kind of job is that? It's like, you got to be in E8 and you work in the embassy. I was like, I got my eye on that one. Yeah. So I did my 3 years of team sergeant time and then I applied for that and I got accepted, but he extended. And, and then I went back to Afghanistan.
So it's one single position.
One single position, E8. And it's really a kingmaker position because no one, until the guy that replaced me got there, no one has ever not made sergeant major there because you're rated by a colonel and you're senior rated by the SOCOM deputy commander 3-star. Okay. So, as long as you get
to tell them that you're not.
That's right. I mean, that's better rating than the command sergeant major of the group.
Yeah. Right.
So and it's better than the battalion sergeant majors, for sure. And all that, I think, and your company sergeant majors too. So, and I'm getting it as an E8. So it's really hard to deny that unless your NCOs are really bad or you had some previous problems or something like that. So everyone before me had made sergeant major in that position and moved out, and he hadn't picked it up yet. He extended because he was marrying a girl there. And so that's when I went to Afghanistan the third time. And then when I came back, I went to Colombia on the last mission with my team, Colombia, and they sent me back early so I could move to Colombia. So that's what I did. So I took that job over. That was a really great challenge. I had a lot of freedom. Everyone trusted me to do what needed to be done. I was in charge of security for every trip that went there. I had to inspect the base, the airfield, the port, whatever, SEALs are coming, whoever's coming. I had to do those inspections, turn them up to make sure it was all official, and then brief them on like new dangers and stuff like that. And then whenever we had like huge, like comfort would come in in some crappy part of the country, and I'd have to go in there and coordinate all the security for that and stuff. So we did
very cool.
Yeah, we did like 4 or 5 humanitarian missions, and it was like I had an ops center. Like no one had ever done this before, and so I was like I had an ops center, and I had like the outer security and inner security. I was doing all this stuff, and I never had any problems while I was there. But it was a heavy ask too. The ship was like, why do we need all this shit? Because they were going to like Costa Rica and all these other places. Right. And I was like, this is Colombia. This is Colombia.
Yeah.
Like we must protect you.
So when you were stationed there, did you ever get a chance to go back up to Lancero School and
visit? So I mean, the thing about Lancero School. So first of all, because I had Lancero, the commander was like, hey, I'm going to go visit all the generals in the south of Colombia. You're coming with me. Yep. And so we'd walk in the room, and he would start talking to, because they were buddies, because he'd been around a while. He was the Army mission chief before, so they're buddies. And then, but the whole time he's talking, the guy's looking at my chest, because he's like, put your Lancero badge on. I was like, okay. Yeah. So somewhere in the conversation, he's like, you went to Lancero School? And the stackism of your machoism is who went to Lancero School first, and you went to a course number or whatever, and they don't do it by year. They do it course 1 to whatever we're at now, 400.
Okay.
And I went to course 200, and unless you're a general, you probably didn't go before me. So if we met any colonels, they were like 10 or 12 classes after me. So they were like, oh. And they do the coin thing too. So I always had to bring my coin too.
Okay.
And then if a general, it was always iffy whether. And then they would always like, who is your head instructor? And I was like, he was him. I was like, oh, the jackal. Yeah, he's horrible. So he told like Lancero story.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I told like Lancero story. So he'd always bring me for rapport.
Yeah.
And if I ever had to go someplace by myself, I'd wear it.
You were the token Lancero.
Yeah, yeah. So and then also the Americans that would go to Lancero School, I would go down and give them like, hey, don't quit. You know, this is what you may think you're just here to be cool and macho, but you're here representing a lot bigger things. And so that worked out good for these guys. So
somebody came and said something that you didn't hear at that time frame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. I'm the operations sergeant major for 7th Group, and I learn, because I go on a trip with the deputy commander to go to visit all the teams. And while I'm down there, I learn about the best Lancero competition. And I'm like, oh.
Is this new?
I don't think it was new, but it wasn't around when I was there. So it started sometime. I mean, why would I know about it? It's not like it's in the news or nothing. And so I reach out to my Colombian contacts, because I left the embassy like a couple of years ago. So I was like, hey, is this a thing? And they're like, oh yeah. I was like, can I get an invitation for 7th Group? And they're like, yeah. And I went in 93. So it's 2013. So I am 20 years. I was like, what a great PAO story.
43.
Yeah.
What?
About 43 then too, right? Because you were 23, I think you said, when you went.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was in my 40s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what up?
We're gonna have
all right, Randy.
Age is only a number.
We're gonna have a Lancero combatant.
So I was like,
reenactment after this.
Chill out, Randy. Oh, you got my back.
So I was 43, and I was like, and there wasn't a lot of Lanceros after me. I mean, there was a couple classes, but it was just because after 9/11, everyone was deploying. Who wanted to waste 3 months in that? Yeah. Just the guy I sent. And after that, no one. That was the largest class. That was like 12 or 14 people. And then after that, it whittled down. Sometimes they didn't even have one. So I said, I was getting all the information. When is it? I got the invitation, and I showed it to the CSM was in Afghanistan, and I was like, hey, they got a best Lancero. I think we should send someone, and I think it should be me.
Yeah.
And because you have to send 2, I was like, and I'll pick someone else. We can have a tryout for my partner.
Yeah.
And,
So they did not have to be Lancero.
no, you have to be Lancero.
No, I mean both of you.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
You have to, just like a Ranger tab. You have to have a Ranger tab to go best Ranger, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, this would be great. Even if we don't win, this would be great.
Right.
Public affairs. After 20 years coming back, I'm sure we'll come, and there's probably like they say there's only 12 or 14 teams every year, so we'll probably come in the middle somewhere, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And 43-year-old, hey, we could talk about taking care of your troops, making sure they're healthy, stuff like that, getting the right.
You really sold this.
Oh yeah, I was trying to. And he's like, yeah, it's a great idea, but let's have a competition to see who goes. So like, sure, no problem. I'll take them all on.
Yeah.
Who is it? Now, one of the guys they chose was like a Spartan race runner dude, and I saw him at a Spartan race and he kicked my ass, and I know he's gonna kick my ass, but everyone else I was like, I got a chance, especially if we graded on the point scale. I could probably do more pull-ups, whatever. So I was looking at the things, and then so there's only 2 that volunteered, and then me, and I was like, oh, I got this. And he's like, yeah, I don't think we should send you. I was like, what? He's like, you're the operations. I'm like, but actually when it starts, you're switching me out. You said you're switching me out. You're right. You're switching me out. He's like, yeah, I'm switching out. I was like, so I can take a little break there and best Lancero, good public affairs. Come on, this is perfect. You can't even ask for this. This doesn't happen every day. This is awesome. And he's like, no, I'm just going to send those 2 E8s down there. I was like, oh, the team sergeants don't have anything to do? But the guy that just got kicked out of his job, come on.
Yeah.
He's like, no. I was like, well, can I go down as like an alternate? I mean, what if the guy gets hurt?
Yeah.
And because that could happen in the airplane. And so I didn't get to go. I was really.
Oh hell, you're building this up, and I'm thinking
it wouldn't let me go.
So how did those guys place?
8th.
Okay.
It's not too bad, right?
I think it was 8th. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, damn. Never got a chance to go through best Lancero.
No. And I was like, I know the contacts. I just need to find a Lancero partner over, because I got assigned to Europe and after group, and I was like, I don't know where I can find a partner to do it. And then I don't know if I'm pretty sure I could convince my colonel to support me, because they'd have to pay the travel and everything. Yeah. I was trying to figure it out, but never played out.
How long till you retired?
After that, so I retired in 2019.
Okay.
Oh wow,
32 years.
Wow. 32. That's right. God,
a long haul, man.
Thinking of the math when you first came in.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's a long time, man.
Yeah, it was close too, because right about that time is when the Sergeant Major of the Army said, "Hey, Sergeant Major is only 30 years unless you're progressing up or whatever." But then he grandfathered clause people that were like right on the cusp. Like if I would have had to get up like that. Get out like 2 months later after he made that rule. So they put the little grandfather clause in there so it wouldn't screw people like me. So,
wow, that's incredible. Really, 32. You don't meet very many people that's done 32. Hell, I did 20 and thought that was long enough. 32.
Yeah. No, it
Congratulations.
didn't feel that long, especially the Sergeant Major time. I was a Sergeant Major for like 10 years, and that didn't feel long. I mean, you're kind of top of you're reporting to a few people, but you kind of got a lot of freedom. And that was, a lot of people were like, hey, why don't you get out contract work, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, I'm making 6 figures as a Sergeant Major, and I'm at the top of the food chain. If I get out, maybe I make a little bit more, but like a third of my pay is tax-free as it is.
Yeah.
So
what did you end up doing when you did get out initially?
So I got a college education finally. In 2000, I got my bachelor's in history.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I immediately said, well, I better do my master's now before I lose my momentum. So I studied international relations. Then I went as a team sergeant to Afghanistan and dropped my classes because we were in Afghanistan. Yeah. And then I got assigned to Colombia, and I was doing my job, and one of the guys that was working with me was an Air Force guy, and he was doing his master's, his MBA. And so I was like, I probably get it back in this. So I took the MBA. I started doing his classes. And then I was like, I don't like this shit. I mean, I was doing well, but I was like, this is what I want to do. What am I going to do with the MBA? It's like, I want to be a writer. So why don't I just take what I want to do? So got back from Colombia, did some research. I found, at the time, I could only find one college that had an online master's in creative writing from University of Texas in El Paso. So I applied. I had to send like 20 pages in, which I didn't have, but I wrote, and they accepted me. So I went there. Here's a funny story. Tuition assistance only paid half. So I was like, that was my thing, right? I was like, okay, tuition pays half. I got a family. At the time I was married. I was like, and I had kids coming up on college in 3 or 4 years. And I was like, if I can find a scholarship, I'll do it. Otherwise I'll figure something else out. And, it's hard to find a scholarship for someone who makes a lot of money on paper and is not eligible for a lot of scholarships. But Mensa doesn't care. Doesn't care how much money you make. Doesn't care what ethnic background you are. Doesn't care if you're male or female. Doesn't care. Mensa only cares if you're smart. So they have a scholarship program for people who aren't part of Mensa, probably to suck them in to be in Mensa.
Okay.
And you write an essay, and it's every January. So anyone who has kids out there, they can enter this contest. You can earn anywhere from $500 to $5,000. They have like 40 or 50 different scholarships at different levels, like regional, local, and national. And so I did it. I wrote an essay. So 90% of the essay is based on grammar, punctuation, and organization. And 10% is content, is what it said, if I remember correctly. And I wrote an essay about how I wanted to use my degree, my writing degree. It was creative writing, but I wanted to use my writing degree to counter human trafficking, because I'd seen a lot of that in my experiences around the world, and I thought that was something I could do. And I felt that I needed 3 things. I needed awareness of the environment, which I felt I had. I needed ability to defend myself or whatever. I don't know how I articulate it. Right. The third one is I needed to articulate it because I needed to inform other people. And so that's why I wanted this writing degree. And I wrote that, I won. And so 6 months after I wrote it, I got this big envelope from Mensa, and it came in June. And I opened it up and I won the national award for $5,000. Nice. And I was like, I won.
Very cool.
So I go to my wife, who was Colombian at the time, and I said, I won the National Mensa Award. Well, Mensa means mentally challenged girl in Colombian Spanish. And
that's hilarious.
And she's like, "Why would you take money from the Mentally Challenged Girls Association?" Because she never heard of Mensa. Yeah. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then her and my stepdaughter, who's 16, would make fun of me for like a week of that I was taking money, because I thought I was really proud of myself, and no one. And I think I was on leave or a pass or something. So they made fun of me for like a week. And talked about it in front of people, like, and then he took money from the Retarded Girl Foundation or whatever. And I was just like, and I called my commander, and I was like, "Hey, I just won the Mensa scholarship." Like, that's freaking awesome. I was like, "Right, it is. It's awesome, right?" So I always tell people about this so they can apply for it, especially their kids. I mean, so I had to go pick up the Mensa check, the big Mensa check at the local Mensa association. And they contacted me, and the guy in charge of it's a Ranger School guy, like who taught at Ranger School back in the day, and Dave. And so I went over there, and I got the check and everything, and they have like local checks. They have like $500, $1,000 scholarships, but some of them didn't even get paid out because not enough people applied. Oh wow! So the local, I went through the local pretty easily. Then they go regional, and then they send it to the national. So they take the best of the best, and then they go. That's the line it goes. But this goes to show you that apply for all the scholarships you can, because some of them don't get fulfilled. And I know this for a fact because when I was in AFRICOM, when I was down in Italy, Vicenza, at the end of my career, I was kind of the judge for the high school scholarships. The Sergeant Major Association was giving out 2 $500 high school scholarships, and no one applied. Wow. And then when we did a last minute with the counselors, like, "Hey, we got these scholarships, can you have someone apply?" The requirement is they had to be an NCO's kid. And so these warrant officer and officer kids applied, and like, where are all the NCO kids? Wow. So, but So then I got my creative writing in 2000. I finished it off in 2018, like right before I retired. And I was in the middle of a divorce, and I hiked across Spain on the Camino de Santiago.
Yeah, we've had somebody on the podcast talk about that.
Yeah, 500 miles, stay in hostels, walk like 20 miles a day. Don't walk with 40 pounds like I did for the first 3 or 4 days. And then I said, okay, what am I not using? That. And then I hired a taxi to take it to the end where I picked it up, and I had about a little bit under 20 pounds, just one change of clothes. So I did that. I met my current girlfriend, who's Hungarian. And
she was doing it as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you meet so many people on there. It's so cool. I got so many people on there. It's crazy stories. I got a whole nother podcast on that. And then I was, when I wrote my thesis, I was listening to Brandy. She got a writing degree, and she wrote her thesis. It took me 2 years to write my thesis too. It's not supposed to take 2 years, but I was just like, God damn. And I wrote a story about Afghanistan, about the first female Green Beret, and she gets deployed to Afghanistan. Her father got killed in Afghanistan. So that was my book.
That's a true story?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, maybe. I don't know. No.
Sneaky.
No, it's obviously not true, because the first female Green Beret hadn't graduated by then.
Okay,
this is back, yeah. So I wrote it, and it was like fucking 350 pages. And after about a year and a half, I told the guy, I was like, hey, how long does this thing have to be?
Yeah.
And he's like, because all my peers, like just like she did, right? She wrote short stories about her life all through the course.
Yeah.
And then she combined them into like a book of short stories, or a book of connecting stories. That's what everyone else did. And I don't know if they had forward knowledge, kind of like Lancero. I didn't know what was going on the whole time or what. But basically,
this wasn't America, so you should be able to speak the language.
I didn't understand that everyone was writing towards their final project, and I started a whole new book.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I got like 250 pages, and everyone else has written a 50-page book of poetry. And and he's like, can I just stop? And he's like, you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. Do you have a beginning, middle, and end? It's like, no, I'm in the middle. And he's like, well, you got to finish it. Can I say the end? And I was like, no. and so I was listening to this podcast called Story Grid, and it was just a really good tool method for writing stories, and it made a lot of sense to me. And so I bought the book. I was in Nigeria at the time, and doing some support work down there, and I bought the book, and I was reading the book, and I wrote the last 100 pages in like a week using this story grid method, and I was like, great, I'll finish, and I turned it in, and then I passed it. I don't know why you have to defend a thesis in creative writing, because you wrote it, right? So what are they going to ask you? It's not like you're defending your science project or your engineering project or whatever. What are we doing here? So I got 4 guys that read my book last weekend, and they're going to ask me like, what was your character thinking when he did this? And I was like, I know exactly what he's thinking, because I made the character. It's just really, I don't get it. But anyway, and all my peers were like super like, oh my God, I'm so worried about it. I was like, does anyone die doing this? So go back to Lancero. Everything goes back to Lancero.
Do you have to fight a snake?
You have to fight a snake. You have to fight a snake.
Deal?
Yeah. So I passed that, and everyone was very happy. They're like, the last 100 pages were the best. I was like,
that's awesome.
So then I got an email, because I signed up for their email, and they said, hey, we're having an editor certification class in February, and that's when I was on my permissive TDY. And I said, I think I want to do that. It was pretty expensive, but I had some transition leave, so I did it. I had to fly to Nashville. I did it. I did the whole course, and I didn't really read what it was. It was
I'm sensing a pattern.
There definitely is a pattern here.
It was an editor certification course. I just wanted to learn how to write better, and I figured. I kind of read what it was, but what I wanted was the knowledge. I didn't want the certification. But in the course, they also walked me through like, hey, once you get through this course, you're a part of our cohort, and we're going to give courses on this online and in person, and we're going to involve you because you've been trained by us and you know our method, because we blessed off on it, because there was like 3 months of homework after the course that we had to turn in, and we're going to give you support whenever you have a problem. We want you to start your editing business, and when we get people that we have tons of followers on our podcast and all this stuff. And when people ask us, which they always do, hey, can I get a story grid editor? Because I believe in this method. Then we refer them to you. And I got 5 to 12 references from them every year. That's what I started. Now I get a lot more from other venues, but initially that's where they were coming from. And they said, so they taught you how to be an editor. They taught you how to set up your whole business. And they had support. Hey, I have a problem with this client, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, this guy has 30 years in the editing publishing business. So he's like, yeah, let me tell you. And then, I got direct contact with that guy. I'm like, hey, the guy who wrote the book, the guy who invented this whole thing. Yeah. Hey, I have a problem with this. I understand. Well, I got this story that I don't know how to fix. And he's like, he'll be on the call for you half an hour, anytime you want.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
And so I started doing that when I got out in June of 2019. And at the end of the year, I'd made like $8,000. I was like, well, I can't live off that. I mean, I can. I have retirement and some VA money, but I'd like to make more than that. So I had a friend when I got out who worked for the VA, worked for Booz Allen, who was doing the VA contract, the counselor contract. So they said, hey, I'd like you to be my deputy. I was like, sure. So I go to that. I become a VA benefits advisor. I'm supposed to be deputy for all of Europe and out of Germany, and I work from home. And so I said, cool. She works in Italy. I work in Germany. And then I go to the course. I'm pretty sure I caught COVID in the course because the whole course got sick. All 40 people were sick in some form, and 2 of the instructors were so sick they had to switch them out because they went home. And,
oh my gosh!
And 5 of the students never left their hotel room and had to do the tests later on and stuff.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure it was pre-COVID. And then I went on a cruise with my girlfriend in the end of February. When I came back, there's no internet on the cruise. I came back and it was like the zombie apocalypse. I mean, for Europe, because I started getting all these dings. We were supposed to fly into Milan on March 1st, right when Italy was closing down. Yeah. And we hadn't heard about any of the stuff that was going on. And they're like, American Airlines, like, hey, you can change your flight or cancel the flight. It's okay. We're not going to charge anything. It's like, why would I want to do that? And then we were reading all this stuff. I said, we should probably get some masks. Where would we get masks? So we went to CVS. So hey, you got any face masks? Like, why? For what? Like surgical masks? Like they have in Europe because everyone's dying? He's like, no. Because this is before COVID hit us hard, right? And I'm like, okay, I guess it's not that big of a deal. So we get in the plane, 20% capacity, if that. We had all kinds of seats. I'm like, whatever. Get to the airport, ghost town, no one there. It's Fashion Week in Milan. Ghost town, tumbleweeds in the streets. I'm in a Hilton hotel in the middle of the city that should be packed. There's 10 people staying there and 2 people working there, and no buffet. No buffet for you. Coffee, and don't touch it. Don't touch me. So everyone's taking it pretty seriously. We get to the airport, fly to Romania, and my girlfriend swears that the barista coughed on her, and that's where she got COVID. Yeah. So we get there, we get off the plane in Romania, and they're all in DEFCON 20, AIDS, Ebola virus, spaceship, lost in space stuff. And the first time I ever saw a fever gun, they're like, come over here. And I'm like, what is going on? They're like, you're all in quarantine for 3 weeks. Don't leave your house. We're going to call you every day. If you don't, we'll execute you, basically. I don't know. Yeah. And so we quarantined for 3 weeks. I'm supposed to move to Germany for my job. So I call my boss. I'm like, I can't. I'm quarantined. They're like, okay. Tell us when you're out of quarantine. Well, by the time I was out of quarantine, they locked the borders down in Germany. They locked the borders down in Romania. No one's going anywhere. The airport was closed. So I called back. I was like, hey, I'm stuck here. They're like, okay, we'll figure it out. So I worked remotely. They did VA counseling remotely for that year. And I worked out of Romania. I didn't have to move to Germany. Wow. And I was the deputy for, 8 or 10 counselors, Spain, Germany, Italy, and the UK. And I learned a lot about benefits. And that's kind of why I like taking the job, because it's so complicated when you get out, right? You don't know. And you know what? You know why it's complicated? Hopefully this will help people who are listening to this. It's complicated because the questions you have cross over out of VA, into DOD and into other aspects. Like when you talk about health insurance, well, you got VA and you got TRICARE, right? And they complement each other. But VA is not allowed to talk about TRICARE, and TRICARE is not allowed to talk to VA. So the only person you can talk to is someone who's actually experiencing it, or worked in both the arenas, or quit one and understands the other. kind of like me right now. But basically, if people are like, hey, I'm going to get VA, blah, blah, blah. You don't even know if you're going to get VA healthcare until, you get your rating 2 or 3 weeks after you get out or whatever, or 5 months, depending on how long it takes, right? So how do you integrate the two? And who can answer those questions? Well, the counselors aren't even allowed to tell you about TRICARE.
Why is that?
Because they're not experts in TRICARE. Okay. So they refer you to the TRICARE line. Okay. And then but if you want to know how they complement each other, same thing with with life insurance, right? You got the VGLI, which maybe not be the right thing for everyone, because VGLI is made for someone who probably can't get life insurance because of something they got cancer before they got out. They have some predisposed disease or injury, and so they probably won't get it. So they get this VGLI, and it's probably made for someone who's not going to live for very long, unfortunately. So you have this VGLI where you can get all this insurance, and they can't turn you down, and then you have to pay. It's competitive when you're 40, maybe 50, but when you get to be 60, 70, 80, it's not as competitive, and it gets to be a lot of money, and no one expects you to hold it that long. So you actually want to combine it with, a USA or, another life insurance policy, or there's a lot of other options, but you can't. In the SBA, do you want to do that, or do you want to buy a life insurance policy because you're paying, whatever 6% of your, I was paying like $600 a month out of my retirement for the SBA, but I can get a $150,000 or $200,000 life insurance policy for $150 a month for the rest of my whole life. So what makes sense for everyone's different, right? And it depends on your personal situation, how many dependents you have, and all that stuff, and when they're going to graduate, and whether they're going to need your help after, in 5 years or not.
This is like a whole nother podcast.
It is, but it's super important, and I'm working on a book. But to get it out there and put it on Kindle Unlimited. So, hey, this is what you need to think about. It's needed. It is, because I'm
listening to this and I'm thinking, well, I've got VGLI.
It's five different things all mixed together, and no one's authorized to tell you the whole deal because they're not experts in the other one. It's not their fault. They've been told not to do it. They may know something about it, but they might not give you the right information because they're not the experts in that. So it's just.
So that's your project now is
to try to. I have friends that refer me to other friends of theirs all the time, and I try to explain all this stuff. And disability is just another whole podcast about that. There's tons of podcasts about that, but it's just what do you do? Do you need someone's help? Do you need to pay someone? How do you get to where you think you need to be, and what are you satisfied with? And also, what are people don't even know the benefits they get, and they get this VA pamphlet that's 50 pages long when they get their disability, and they don't read it. But it says in there specifically, hey, you can have this disability insurance, and you don't have to pay any, you don't have to pay any premiums. Hey, you get this, education, dependence education thing. $1,300 a month my son's getting to go to college, from the DEA. Wow. So if you don't know that, and then of course the state ones, like Texas gives you 160 free hours or something like that for your dependents. So all these things, you really need to talk to some holistic counselor about this, because it's the only way you're going to merge it all together.
Is that the second book, or is that just part of the first book?
So I wish I did this podcast next year, because I came up with this idea to do.
Well, then you just have to come back.
Okay. But so
we should go to Romania. It sounds cool.
So you can look at my webpage over the next year. I want to do a nonprofit, or I want to team up with a nonprofit, and I'm talking with, I think Scott, you interviewed Scott Mann, right? Mm-hmm. So he's got a nonprofit called The Hero's Journey. Okay. And so I've been talking with him.
I think we did Scott Mann. God, what does that sound familiar?
I think he did too.
Yeah.
But he's got one. He did a play called Last Out. So Last Out play, which is about a Green Beret who dies in the beginning, and he can't let go to get to heaven, to get to Valhalla, and he can't let go. And so it's about all the things that are on his mind, PTSD, letting his family down, all these things that he can't let go of. And it's really powerful play. And I think he made a movie of it, and I think the movie's still available out online right now. But lastoutplay.com is the webpage. But he brings psychiatrists with him when he does the play, because it triggers veterans, and then he gets them the help they need to go with their PTSD. So it's a really great program. And we were talking, and I don't know if he's going to be able to help me with this, because it's all about legals and stuff like that. But my plan is to teach to offer like this kind of VA thing, VA kind of holistic view of your life, but also to teach veterans how to write their own stories. And when I listen to every other podcast, they've written a book about their life because they want to pass the lessons on, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone knows how to write in the most compelling way, which is what I've come to specialize in the last 3-4 years, right? And I talk to authors all the time. They have a great story to tell, but when they tell it in a certain way, it's not as compelling as if you rearrange it, add a few things, take a few things away, and make it an exciting story. It doesn't have to be an action story, but just exciting for the brain. And so one of my ideas was to have a veteran writing program where I would be able to teach them the things that I've learned to make a better story. I've also mentored some to be editors too, so they can make money in their free time for friends and stuff like that. But I haven't decided if I want to do that as a charity or for money or what. But right now I'm just doing it for free for people to ask me. So I'm sure I'm going to get 500 people to call me tomorrow. Right?
Yeah, hopefully so. So you've got a website.
Yeah, my website's www.randysurles, RANDYSURLES.com. It's my editing website. I've edited like 40 books now. I've ghostwritten 2.
We'll try to tag that in the meeting notes.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, podcast notes.
And I've I started out with like I'll edit anything, and it's paid off in more ways than one. I've done biographies, and I've helped a lot of military guys get their story out there, and I think letting veterans know how the best way to tell their story is probably the solution to what I'm trying to do. I just like last year I just had I flipped and said, I've been very fortunate and I have this editing business that's doing pretty well and this writing business. I should give back. What can I give back? What do I know? And so the 2 things that I know is how to combine these veteran and post-retirement benefits. And the other thing I know is, how to write and how to write a better story. And so that's what I've been trying to wrestle with this for the last 2 months. I've talked to some mentors of mine and trying to figure out the best way to attack this. And so this next year I'm planning on implementing that. I just don't know what it looks like. So,
all right.
Very cool.
So we already know you're coming back next year. But before that, I do want to thank you for coming on the podcast because, I could have sat here. We've already been going now for 3 hours, believe it or not.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could probably go
we
another
skipped
3
the last
hours.
half of my life.
Yeah. Got to come back.
So, yeah, you definitely got to come back because I think what you're talking about right now is an important topic, around not just helping veterans tell their stories, which we've had podcasts around a book around the last 20-year war and a lot of the people talking about their transitional challenges and those types of things. But I think, too, the VA, understanding that our life insurance, these are all critical things that we just don't spend enough time around. And so I'd love to have you come back and us hit on those topics.
Sure.
Especially after you've got everything all set up like you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think it would be really cool.
Yeah. No, I was thinking as I come in here, I was like, should I mention this? It's not up yet. I don't know. But it's a super important topic.
No, it'll be great because then people will listen to it and be looking forward to it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, most definitely.
Done and done.
Randy, thanks so much again, man. All the way from Romania. Somebody's got to beat that, right? That's the new challenge.
Yeah, distance challenge for Mentors from Ill. How far can
right now, Randy has top billing.
Top dog, top Lancero.
Well, if Russia gets through Ukraine, they're going to hit Romania, so I'll have to go somewhere else.
Oh.
I'm thinking about moving to Croatia, though. It's freaking beautiful. Like Yugoslavia, when it split up, Croatia got the...
That's what I've heard.
Croatia got it. They got the whole coast. It's crazy, amazing. It's not too expensive. Everyone speaks English. They still show movies in English, which is a pretty important thing. Romania too, but most of the other Western countries they dub them.
Got to have priorities.
Marvel's coming out with good movies, I'm sure.
And maybe we'll go over there and do the podcast in Croatia.
I'm voting for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm voting for that.
All right.
I might not.
You're invited.
Appreciate it, Randy.
Yep. Bye.
All right, Randy.